welcome to the November 21st meeting of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. This meeting is a regulations and policies type meeting. Woo-hoo. This meeting is being held independent of our regular Wednesday night meetings and held solely for the purpose of, lost my place, regulation policy review. No hearings
No
are
hearings.
included.
But you are voting orders of conditions.
Can I finish what I was,
Sure.
wrote down here?
Okay,
you know,
sorry.
So, our goal is to clarify certain regulations, policies, and/or create new regulations for issues previously ambiguous. Please note, this is just one part of the regulatory process. Nothing becomes official until Ms. Bergeron says so, until it's finalized by the commission based on these public meetings and subsequently approved at town meeting. We encourage public participation and welcome input, but encourage you to stay on topic. The chair reserves the right to stop any commenting that is disparaging or inconsequential to the hearing. We also will have on occasion other business. In the case of today, we will be voting on some order of conditions from last meeting because we didn't have a meeting this week because of the town meeting, or next week because of Thanksgiving. So, and other business is always that fun thing that I get to throw in because I can. All right, so. You put minutes on here?
I guess Lori did, so that's fine.
So, an amendment to my other business, we're also gonna vote minutes occasionally,
Is this supposed to
apparently.
be handed out or private? I don't know.
So, all right, so vote minutes, October 17, 2024.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of that meeting with any potential changes emerging out of discussion today.
Second O'Brien.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept the minutes of October 17. Questions or comments? All right, we're voting. Courtney?
Aye.
Betsy? Kevin?
Oh, aye.
Matthews, aye.
Abstain, wasn't there.
Absolutely. All right.
Driscoll, aye.
All right, it still passes. Thank you, Kristen, if you're watching. All right, so an update to the regulation topics. So again, we're gonna try and get some stuff ironed out, but we don't wanna have every single meeting for the next 6 months on one thing, so it's probably gonna take 1 or 2, possibly 3 meetings, but if you all got the staff notes on our previous discussions, we can probably put a couple of things to rest. And again, for the record, this isn't final, this has to go to town meeting. But if we basically agree to this whenever, then we're moving forward.
Just a correction, it does not need to go to town meeting, that's only a bylaw change. These are regulations, you have home rule authority to promulgate your own regulations. It does need to go through a public hearing process. It does need to be advertised in the paper for 60 days. We do need to take public comment, and after public comment, we are free to adopt the regulations. But I want to adopt the regulations as a whole, unless we decide we've gotten enough things ironed out, and then we can do them in kind of like groupings.
Okay, so that's all I really wanted to clarify was that even if we voted today, I'm just gonna give an example, if we accept what we have about sheds, this doesn't mean it changes the regulations today, it just means that we're accepting what we've come up with
Correct.
to be
Yeah,
get
and towards the
approved.
end, and if we decide that maybe in mid-February or March, you've decided on enough items, we can have another public meeting, advertise what, we want to promulgate, hold that public meeting, and then we can put it in the paper.
Yeah,
I mean, we have a lot of flexibility, so, and this is just, it's gonna take us a while to kind of get into a groove on how to do this.
yeah, okay. I just wanna be clear, we're not, every single one of these meetings, we're gonna talk about sheds.
No, got it.
At some point, we're gonna call it done.
No.
actually put
All right.
sheds to bed today.
So, first up, update regulation topics. First thing is fire pits and sheds in an A zone to a resource area. So, I don't know if you had a chance to look at the staff notes.
And this is, the staff notes are just a recap of what we
Yep.
did last week.
Yep.
You know, we talked about a square foot maximum size. We talked briefly about restricting the use because a lot of these a lot of these sheds are turning into accessory structures like bunkhouses and, you know, little TV spaces, you know.
Yeah.
And, yeah, she sheds, man caves, whatever you wanna
Man
call it.
caves.
So, I'm just trying to find a PC way to say that, but.
Non-habitable space.
Yeah, so the more, and this was what we came up with, the more we talked about it, if we're gonna mitigate for sheds, what's the difference between storing a lawnmower or a couch and a TV in there? Like, we didn't wanna make it too restrictive, because one, it's very difficult to enforce. The agents aren't gonna be going and peeking into the windows of these sheds. And two, the structure is what we're mitigating for. What they use the interior of that structure for,
It's none
I
of our
wish-
business.
really don't think it matters as far as an impact
From
to
our
the resource.
perspective.
Yeah.
An
But-
impact to the resource
But I
area.
think it's important that we put in there that the only restriction or the key restriction is that it's non-habitable.
Yeah, but
So
it,
we're not accepting that it can be, well, habitable. It can't be
A bunkhouse.
conditions.
Well, somebody could put their bunk in it. It's none of our business what takes place in their shed.
so
Our
then like
business is the-
habitable, what does habitable mean? You can't use it as like
You
a,
can't have electricity, you can't have
Kids
water.
can't sleep in it.
It can't be conditioned, it can't be used as a guest house.
well, a guest house, I'm assuming would need plumbing, so.
It's like a tent. I mean, you'd allow somebody to put a tent in their backyard and sleep in it. Why not in an empty shed? I just say, we don't say anything about it. It's none of our
Yeah,
business what's in the
we're
shed.
just worried about the
Yeah.
impervious surface in those 200 square feet.
Okay.
You know,
That would
and
be a-
that's,
that would be a
Jamie, that's
building
what we were
department.
grappling with
I'll
last
agree.
week. It's like we said, okay, utility sheds only, blah, 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 and then we're like thinking to ourselves, but what's the difference if you're,
Okay,
you know, somebody's using it, they want electricity because they're tinkering in a workshop versus, you know, sitting on a couch watching TV versus, you know, having some light to get their snow blower at night. Really, what does it matter? It's like, we're looking at the impacts to the resource area. As once the structure's there, that's the impact. As long as they're mitigating for the structure.
Yeah.
I don't know, that was
Okay.
just our discussion internally. That's why we put the staff notes and we put it out there for you to discuss. It's like we look at these
I
old,
think they just shot me down.
we look at these old, orders of conditions from like the 90s where the board used to condition no habitable space above a garage. Why? If it was to limit the septic system, they would have to go to the Board of Health and come back to the Concom for an increase
So
in
it's
design
beyond
flow.
our purview then?
Yeah, it's beyond our purview, is what we eventually came up with. Again, this is just what we internally were, as far as staff goes, grappling with, like, we're not, how do we know what's in that thing? Unless they put glass windows all over it,
Okay.
you know?
We beat that enough.
Yeah,
Mike?
I was just gonna, she stole my thunder, you've got other boards, departments like zoning, about habitable space, or health, about bedrooms, so they will, their job is to enforce that.
Told you that was a bad idea. All right,
so we do think they should be mitigated for, we do think there should be a square foot maximum size. Board of Health, excuse me, building does have like this little
The shed-
green
the
cheat
shed,
sheet that alerts people that when they are going to construct a shed, that they need to come talk to us in historic. So a lot of times we get the excuse, oh, I didn't know. So
Yeah,
building
yeah.
came up with this.
I have a comment on that. I have so many people come to me, they only hear what they wanna hear. They go to the building department and the window says, you don't need a permit for a shed if it's under this size.
Right.
But don't forget, you might wanna check with historic and conservation. They stop listening when it says you don't need a permit, and then you guys find out about the shed, and then they're like in trouble, because they don't wanna hear it. So that's on them, is all I'm saying. That little pamphlet, I hand those out all the time, cause people don't wanna, they think they're
The
free
max
and
is
clear.
200.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you still have to go to Conservation Commission,
Or historic.
or historic.
For historic.
So,
And zoning.
if they want to construct a thing that exceeds 200 square feet, A, they have to get a permit, and B, they would have to submit a notice of intent, which we may or may not approve, correct?
Well, Courtney, they're gonna have to permit the shed, okay? And the shed may require a notice, because if they're in an A zone to, let's say, a salt marsh in a grassed area, they're gonna owe you 600 square feet of mitigation, which exceeds the allowable mitigation under an
Yeah.
RDA. They still have to come to this board for any shed,
Yeah,
okay? Just to make
And
that
if
clear.
they tried to come to you for a 250 square foot shed, you'd point to the regulation and say,
Can't do it.
can't
Can't
exceed
do
200.
it.
Yeah, so. Another thing, so we had, I just threw a definition together, we can talk about it if you want, everything in red is just draft. So, those were the the sections of the regulations that needed to be changed. One of the things we talked about was, in a V zone, that if they wanted to put that shed there, that is going to count towards that 200 square foot in a
Point of
V
view.
zone.
Yep.
Betsy?
I don't mean to throw a wrench in this definition. The definition sounds fine, but do we have a definition of structure?
I think that's where I was going, like, saying over 200 feet.
Hang on, there's this definition of structure, I believe, in
And
the
that hasn't
zoning.
been, I don't think this board has dealt with it, but in the past, that's come up as an
Yes.
issue.
Structure. Under zoning,
This is in our regulation?
no, this is zonings,
No,
and
no, I wanna know what the
We don't-
definition is in our regulation.
I don't believe we have one, Betsy.
Well, we probably should.
Okay, we can come up with a definition for structure.
Good luck with that.
Why don't we
Yeah,
start?
it's-
I
why don't
assume
we
there's
start with
no
You don't
difference
have to do
between
that
our
now, but-
definition and the one and the other.
We don't have a definition of structure.
Yeah, I'm just saying, if you're gonna use structure in this definition of shed,
How about you just say shed shall not exceed?
Yeah, don't even call it.
Don't even call it a structure.
it's even better.
Because all we're trying to do is allow
A shed.
Shed,
a
right.
shed, so let's,
Let's just,
Yeah,
it's a
let's
shed,
not
let's call it
worry
a
about
shed.
it.
let's not get into structure.
So, I mean, our permit doesn't supersede anybody else's
Oh, yeah, that's true.
permitting requirements. So just because we
Any should.
approve something doesn't mean they get approved by zoning or
Correct.
health. So it's the same even for this.
Any.
The only thing I would suggest, maybe we put a blurb in there that it still has to comply to, you know, zoning and building, you know.
Well, that would be true of all the stuff we're
Yeah.
working on.
Yeah,
So,
So,
other community.
I mean, that's already in there
regulations.
in the, I don't know which regulation, but it says you have to get permits, you have to apply for any of the other permits that you might need.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
in
we
order
just have to
each
get
time.
them, that paper you had about the sheds from the building department, there's something in there about zoning, and, right? We have to see if there's something in there about conservation.
Zoning
Yes,
issues,
there is.
conservation,
Zoning and
sheds.
conservation.
Yeah.
in historic.
Conservation and
And
historic
historic,
district, it should be noted that although a shed may not be large enough to require a building permit, the homeowner should confirm whether or not the property falls within historic or conservation districts and requires an application prior to installation.
And that's the step that I think gets skipped when they do it verbally. I'm not throwing them under the bus, I'm just saying that, you know, if somebody walks up and says, hey, can I build a 150 square foot shed? They'll say, yeah, well, you don't need a permit,
And the other
because
place
you're
that it
standing in front of the
happens,
building department.
when you apply for a building permit, all the other departments get referred, so if they didn't get an order of conditions, these guys are gonna put the brakes on it. That falls apart on the shed, because they're not applying for a building permit if it's under 200 square feet.
Right.
It's just one of these things, we do the best we can,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we just capture it on the other end. So you're
Alright.
gonna change it to definition shed, shall not exceed 200 square feet,
Are we all okay with 200 square
Yep.
feet?
Yep.
Yeah, fine.
And if that's in an A zone, if that's in a velocity zone, that takes up that weight.
Yeah, and I think I listed it that if you look
I
at
think you did, yeah.
The change in the definitions where we got tripped up,
The cumulative size.
nope, I'm talking about just in the buffer zone regs where we got tripped up, where we started, characterizing sheds as accessory structures, we changed that regulation to say expansion of primary structures such a house, addition of accessory structures, with the exception of a shed as defined in FWR 10.0, so in zone A must not move closer. So that would take care of, the example, and the one I think about all the time was Mike's client off at Antler Shores. Yeah, where, yeah,
And we don't have a definition of structure even though we reference it.
well, I just struck it.
Yeah, let's not go down that route if we don't need to. You
No,
remember-
because the definition of structure in zoning is quite elaborate and includes sports courts and everything else, so
Flag
why don't we
poles, yeah.
just, shed, shall not exceed.
Yep. And you have the mitigation at 3 to 1, and if it was in a B zone, it'd be 2 to 1.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's why I was saying, if they're mitigating for it, really, what do we care what the use is?
Right. Okay, so what was the other piece?
I'd go even
Well,
further.
it's the mitigation and the
It's
size.
what the use is.
Yeah.
Okay, is everybody okay with the definition?
Anything to add?
Yeah, and the only other thing, used to store materials, why don't we just strike that? I mean, if it's not storing materials, what if it's just I don't know, that, again, or keep it in, I don't care, it doesn't matter to me, I'm just,
This is all gotta go through more on it.
again, we're just
We can
doing the
take a look at it.
200 square feet and what its impact is
Yeah.
as the footprint, and
Right, that's what's our.
that's our
concern.
charge.
Yeah, yeah.
One question that comes to mind, when we have a limit on expansion of an existing structure that can't exceed 200 feet, I believe it's an involved velocity zone. Is that a cumulative thing, in other words, if
Yeah,
they,
that's
That
in
we
here.
already just
That's
talked about
part of
that.
here.
That's part of that
this.
part.
okay,
I did, I put, so, if you look at number, where is that? Number 6, under that first one, so,
oh, okay.
yeah, I added some draft language for proposed reg revisions, and that's in red. And if you look at the one for the velocity zone, which is number 6, the cumulative size of all additions to the structure since and any shed as defined by FW4 since the effective date of 1998, which is when that regulation first appeared, does not exceed 200 square feet. So the shed is included,
It's a bite of the apple.
it's a bite of the apple, as you guys like to say. And we'll go over these again, and if we have any clarifying comments that we have to,
Right.
we'll bring it up at the next meeting. Okay?
For purposes today, we're basically, this is it, except for whatever clarification.
Yeah, and like I said, when we get to a point where we think we have enough accomplished and we wanna roll out our first stab at reg revisions, we'll advertise it again, make it official public meeting to talk about these changes, advertise it in the paper,
Okay,
and go from there.
all right.
Yeah, and just so everybody realizes, because a bunch of us have gone through this before, we wanna get to the point where we accumulate most of these, because then it goes up to Mike Palmer, and he prints it, and there'll be a new set of regulations that come out.
Okay,
So we may as well get as many, clean it up as much as possible.
yeah,
And we wanna do it like if we want any other, if we're gonna be making these reg revisions to the buffer zone regulations, we wanna make sure that we do all our buffer zone revisions,
Right.
before we send it up, so we're not revising the buffer zone, resource
You did-
area buffer regs more than once.
You did a really good job in where we might not have all of them, but you said, this is gonna affect this regulation and that regulation.
That was Alyssa, you can thank her for your staff notes. I just added the red stuff. And some other little nuts. Okay, fire pits. Didn't, my definition of fire pit literally came from Google. We
Where
can
is it?
change it,
Oh.
so it's next
Plagiarizing.
one down. Again, allowing a square foot maximum size. And all, I think I missed the last one, from your conversation, sheds, you can't remove natural vegetation, it has to be in an already cleared area. Okay, again, with fire pits, situated in an already cleared area, you're mitigating at your normal rate of either 3-to-1 or 2-to-1, depending on if you're in zone A or B. We grappled with this one as well.
So all we wanna,
You know, do you wanna restrict the area of the fire pit to a pervious surface, such as sand, shell, crushed stone, and not an impervious surface, like a wet laid patio? Do you care?
well, it'll be the same
You're
purpose
still
as the
mitigating.
shed.
Yeah, you're still
So-
mitigating.
So it could be a non-pervious surface.
If you're
As
gonna
long as it's
mitigate.
mitigated
If,
for you.
yeah, well, yeah, as long as it's mitigation, yeah.
So now we're going down this slippery slope of patios. And how are we gonna treat patios?
If that fire pit gets removed, it's patio.
Yeah, it's patio,
We don't allow patios to be closed.
which was one of Tim's
In
points.
the A zone.
In the A zone, but if we're gonna allow
You had
this,
a project that had that. You
So-
have, all of these problems come from your,
That's why he came today.
so, and so, you know, we had a great discussion the last time, but when we kinda sat together and started going through it from a staff perspective, we're like, okay, what does it matter if it's gravel or pavers or wet laid, but then at one point, does it become a patio?
I
And
think in
then-
the A zone it should be, you can have a nice area around that's still pervious.
Pervious, you wanna
It's
leave them
just
as
sand.
pervious? Do you wanna say sand, shell, or crushed stone, because then you're gonna get into the point where you're gonna get these dry laid patios where people are saying they're pervious. And this one's gonna go off on dry laid patios.
No,
But, so, I mean, these are the things that we're running into in the field, and we're just bringing it to your attention, like, how do you want us to handle this? See, it's that slippery slope that,
So I've seen them in people's yards that are just the, Home Depot cylinder with Adirondack chairs around it, on the lawn. Like,
Yeah.
there's nothing.
Yeah.
So,
and we've seen them with sitting
I have
walls
too.
and patios and
And
marble and gas piped
yeah,
and,
oh yeah.
Pizza ovens.
and pizza
Oh, yeah.
ovens and,
So if somebody just had the fire, I guess it's case by case, like a fire, just the cylinder that's this big with 6 Adirondack chairs, do they have to mitigate because the fire pit's there that they take away in the, I mean, some of these things are like just a little,
Well, some people, yeah, just put it on their lawns
Want
and
to
then
take
take
it
it
away.
and put it in their shed.
What do they call it? Golo or
Yeah.
something, there's stainless steel and they're just a little cylinder.
well, some people just have, it looks like a little tub,
Yeah, there's those,
Yeah.
like
Right, so
Ocean
I-
State Job Lot.
yeah.
One sec, Court. I thought the intent of creating this was for a fire pit area that isn't just a casual
Promote
throw the burn barrel down and grab a chair. I thought it was something more where people, because we've had a bunch of applications where people wanna keep a fire pit
A masonry, yeah.
with stone around it.
we're just telling you what eventually is going to happen. Because we've seen it in the field,
The footprint's already there.
footprints
We
there,
just want we don't want it as a fire pit anymore, we just want a dry laid patio.
correct. Now what do you do with the dry
So
laid
why
patio?
can't you come and say, hey, Mike, I want a dry laid patio, would you put together? What are you gonna tell
Well,
them?
what if you had a pool and you said, I'm gonna build a fire pit next to my pool? And then you decided you didn't want the fire pit anymore, but whatever that surface was, suddenly is a patio next to a pool.
That's what I'm
That's
getting
exactly.
at.
It
So
might be-
yeah,
There might be too much variability for a regulation. It might just need to be a case by case. It's just, fire pit goes away, it's patio.
yeah.
What do you do
speak.
at the
Well, then
south
can
pole?
somebody come in for just a patio?
That's the question.
That's the question, because we've been stopping people, because if they're moving closer to the resource area, we're treating
don't
patios like
allow
accessory
accessory
structures,
structures.
and we're not allowing them, because they're moving closer in zone A. We're just telling you, again, from a staff point of view, where those little hiccups are gonna be.
Hiccups are, yeah.
It would be a lot easier for us if you didn't
Right.
point out that.
We're just letting you know what we see in the field, that's all. Going forward.
No, stop.
Okay.
Courtney,
So, I don't think it's unreasonable for us to restrict the size of a fire pit and whatever can be allowed as stone around it. In other words, if you have a fire pit, it's gonna burn hot. So you wanna have something around it as a base. So I know that we had a case that came in, it was 3 feet, and, you know, you put 5 feet, make a 5-foot circle in diameter, that you can fill up with stone, and sit this thing on it, case closed. If they wanna put their Adirondack chairs out, it's on the lawn, there's no, you know, now they still have to mitigate for that 5, cause that 5 feet, though it's technically pervious, isn't sustaining anything. You mitigate for that, but you don't allow them to now expand that and have patio where they put the chairs. You can have the lawn where they put the chairs, but no patio.
And it's
so why are you
still
gonna allow me
the
to have
same
a
issue.
200-square-foot
Still the
shed
same issue, what if they
and
just
not
take everything
a
away and just
patio
want it as
or
patio
or
instead?
a fire pit area?
Well, yeah, true. Well, if they don't use it
So
as a.
Tim's argument is, if you allow it, you're gonna get more mitigation. So what's the trade-off for the environment? I mean, I try to look at these things as, what effect, how, is this gonna improve the environment?
Getting rid of 200 square feet of lawn next to a pool that could become a fire pit or a patio, and then getting 600 square feet or 200 square feet or 400 square feet of mitigation is a win
It's a
versus.
win.
Is a win.
Yeah.
And I think our charge is to make it, the environment better, not be punitive and saying, oh, you can't have a patio, it's moving closer, or a fire pit because it's moving closer. I'd rather see the 200 or 600 square feet of mitigation to improve the environment.
So do we group it as fire pit, sheds, patios?
Well, let's get to let's hold off on patios, because I don't wanna get too deep. We might not be able to put this one to bed today, but just going forward again, a proposed definition with a proposed square footage. I just threw that out there, 150 square feet. I didn't really know how much room you need for a fire pit. Really
That's
not my
pretty
thing,
big.
so.
That's pretty big,
Is that pretty big, Mike?
10 by 15.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're gonna,
But if you're putting a
If you're
couple of
saying you're gonna
Adirondack
let-
chairs and you need to have some sort of distance so you're not burning your eyebrows off, you know,
You take a couple little tables so you can put your beer on it,
yeah, I mean,
and your cooler, and
but not tonight,
No.
it's too wet tonight.
anyway, and then I went on and,
No burn warning.
yeah, and then I just went on to the revision to a regulation that it would affect. So,
for consistency with the 200 square feet, this would almost be the bite of the apple again. So just say you put the 200 square foot patio out there. That's your 200 square feet. And then you just keep it all 200, and it's easy to keep your numbers of, the mitigation is 600 square feet in a B zone, X amount in a A zone. I don't know, just trying to keep
No, I agree
all
with
the.
that.
You're saying all three things, either shed or fire pit or patio, can't exceed
200
two
square
hundred
feet
square feet in the A zone.
in the A zone and B zone.
well, okay, so, think about it this way, guys. How close in that A zone are you gonna allow these things? Because we have some properties that back up onto marshes all the time that are lawn down to the marsh.
Right, so just think if they get 200 square feet of a patio for a fire pit,
They need
then we
600
get
square
a
feet of
buffer
mitigation.
now, and it's not lawn right down to the marsh, which is actually an improvement. I don't know.
If they put the mitigation, or if, I'm gonna pick on Mike because he's here, Tim was here, I'd be picking on Tim, Tom was here, I'd be picking on
Yeah,
Tim. Or what
required.
if Mike says, oh, but, you know, they'd like some screening over here from their neighbors. Now it's turning into just screening and it's not doing anything for the
Okay.
resource area.
I've never heard Mike say.
Buffer plantings are supposed to enhance
Yeah.
the thickness of the
It's supposed to be the closest to the resource.
Right.
I mean, I would limit, I don't think I don't particularly think it needs to be, everything needs to be 200. It doesn't matter to me, but if that's what you guys
No
want.
greater than.
No greater than 200. I mean, that's 20 by 10 or, that's pretty big, right, Mike, for a fire pit area?
Pretty big.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a big patio. And
I've
think,
seen-
you
I've
got a
seen ones
patio,
that size.
this is another thing you have to think about, you've got a patio at grade, right? Or let's say a fire pit at grade, or a patio at grade, they're not gonna want those mitigation plants right in front of
close.
where they're trying to enjoy the view. So, these
That's
are
a
just, I'm
point.
just
Yeah, that's a
throwing
good
out
point.
these
Yeah.
little things
Yeah.
that we encounter in the field.
Good point.
So, yes, in theory, it's a great idea until those poor bayberry are being managed at a height of 2 feet. Just something to think about if you're gonna, if we're gonna transition this, and I mean, this is gonna obviously generate more discussion because we're gonna lump patios in here now as well. You know, that's something we did not think about or discuss internally, but I'm just throwing these things out is, yes, in theory, Maury, it's great, we get the extra buffer, but until it grows. Baccaras can get pretty big.
Or then you could put your patio in the mitigation area.
Mr. Borselli,
I was gonna say, you have a provision in your current regs about, work within, the A zone not moving closer than the present primary structure for most of the wetland resources, but you have a cutout for, salt marsh.
25 feet,
Right.
no closer
So-
than 25
So you've made
feet.
an example of like, a lot of properties from way back in the day, before we had rules, have lawns almost down to salt marshes. You could maybe put something in that says, those kind of things, like patios and fire pits with patios
Can't
on
be
them.
more than
Can't
50
be
feet.
more than some distance, like 25 you have for salt marsh.
Right. Yeah, that's
So
a good
you'd still
idea.
have a buffer between it and the
That's a good
salt
idea.
marsh. You couldn't like build your patio like literally 3 feet from the salt marsh, you know?
right,
That's a good point.
That's a good point.
Courtney,
So, I'm still hung up on my 5-foot diameter. That's 19.6 square feet for those of you, well, for the record. And I think that's important because we don't wanna use the magic number 200 square feet all the time. That would give you a hell of a big surface for your, if somebody wants to plant a 3-foot diameter thing and with a little surround, it's 19.6 times 3.
I just threw something in there, if someone wants to take a stab at looking at that definition, literally it came from Google. Except for the fire pit area and associated seating shall not exceed 150 square feet. I mean, if you guys wanna take a stab at it
I
and
don't
do
wanna
something else, that's fine. I just threw out there for purposes of discussion. I said I would come up with a definition, I did.
that's good for consistency.
Can
I
I
think it
address,
becomes a
can I
whole-
address what Courtney just said?
I just think it becomes a whole different kettle of fish when you start saying, okay, you're gonna have pervious pavers and seating walls and all that stuff. But if it's a simple 3-foot diameter thing that either you bought in a store and has 5 feet of gravel around it, and the rest of it's lawn, that
But that's
5
not-
feet of 19 square feet
That's not-
needs to
That's
be
not what we-
mitigated for.
That's not what these things are, Courtney. In all
And the
reality-
other stuff, then they'd have to go in front of us, like,
I like the
permitted, and
200
it
is
counts against them on the square
very
feet.
consistent, and it can be,
They
remember we
can do
had a
whatever they
project,
want
not to
with
bring
the
up a,
200 square feet.
huh?
They can do whatever they want with this. I don't think we should be
That's
telling
what I'm,
people what to do.
what I'm trying
No, no,
to
no.
say.
I know.
We had a project recently, well, within the last year, they had a shed and a little patio next to it in the A zone. They had like 2 Adirondack chairs. So I don't remember the exact dimensions, but I bet it was under 200 square feet, just coincidentally. So all I'm saying is if somebody wants to do a small patio and a small shed, and it doesn't exceed the 200, that's what we're looking for, is total, not each.
Yeah, because we don't allow these secondary, right now, secondary structures in the A zone.
I
And
understand
now
that.
we're saying,
We
we'll
will.
allow up to 200 square feet, and it can be, you have these things to choose from.
Right. That's why I'm saying the
Yeah.
200 is,
Universal, yeah, a consistent number.
Like if you did a circle, a fire pit, patio, I think that's radius of 10 feet means diameter of 20. That's pretty much 200.
192.
Yeah.
yeah, because I had done one at 15 diameter, because I have a 5-foot fire pit and I have about 5 feet of space around it for chairs. And that's 176, 177 square feet. So that was my, like, starting point, how, you know,
Yeah, so a 20
what
foot
seems
diameter.
reasonable.
Yeah, 20 foot.
Because some people will
diameters.
tell you they need 600 square feet, you know, but now
Yeah.
you're getting outdoor kitchens and all this stuff, so.
Well, we're gonna be having that as a discussion topic. So,
So to Betsy's point, the 200 would be
It's
whatever.
your choice as to what you want to put, use
But
that
that's it.
200, but that's it.
you can have a shed, or a fire pit, or a patio.
But you can't have one of each.
Or a little bit of each.
Okay,
And if they
Very
already
little.
have some,
then they can't
go
have
up to
them.
200?
No, that's it, the 200, the bite of the apple is 200,
In the velocity zone,
no velocity zone.
yeah.
Well, what about on a regular property, not in a visa?
Well, still 200, we're limiting it to
I think just
200.
You're limiting
It's
any
just
sort
clear.
of accessory use to 200.
Correct.
So,
Right?
if we're gonna use the term accessory use, right this
So what
down.
happens,
We're gonna have to
In
come
the
up with
B
a
zone.
definition of accessory use.
is this only in the A zone?
Oh, so the B zone
Because
wouldn't count.
A and B zone only?
This,
Am I just to follow you,
no, our understanding was, let's say you're not in a V zone,
or an A zone?
Only.
only in A zone. We limit it only in an A zone. If
Okay,
it's in the B zone,
okay.
they can have a fire pit and a shed, and as
Yeah.
long as they
As
mitigate,
long as it's mitigated for.
but only in an A zone, okay. Only A zone limit 200. Max
So simple, yet so
of
complicated.
accessory. So when I quickly looked at the definition of accessory
But
structure
it's easier to
in,
make it
Radius of
clean.
square feet.
in
Square feet total.
Yeah,
zoning, it included sports courts, patios, things like that. So let me take another stab at doing this, okay? And I'll bring it back next. We're not gonna get these things settled in 1 or 2 meetings, but we won't be going 6 meetings talking about this. Like, let me take, now we're going into a different direction than we talked about last week, which is good, it's healthy, it's productive.
Well, fire pits are sort of the new thing.
Fire pits, outdoor kitchens, and plunge pools is the new things. Plunge pools,
plunge pools.
little tiny pools.
Okay.
That's what we're hearing from the consulting
Yeah,
Yeah, they're
community.
basically a septic tank that
Yeah.
you put tile inside.
Very expensive septic tank.
Not hot tubs though.
No, they're like little pools.
See, and then,
What do you,
then you
well,
have that, you're gonna
never
have,
mind.
you're gonna have areas where people are
Would
gonna
you-
wanna put hot tubs, so accessory use hot tub. Do hot tub,
I gotta
hot
move
tub,
to a
sports
poor
court,
town.
patio, fire pit, shed.
But
I gotta
outdoor
move to
plunge
a
pools
poor town.
Okay. Alright, let me take a stab at this for the next time.
perfect.
But I think this was a good discussion. Anything to add? No? I mean, again, we are just reporting what we're seeing in the field. And things that sometimes, you know, it sounds great when we say it, but in reality, it just doesn't
The
work.
biggest piece of all of this is whatever we're allowed is gonna require mitigation.
Oh, absolutely, and if they
So
can't fit the
that's a
mitigation,
bonus for the resource area,
Yeah.
so.
and we always say, the way we originally structured these regs was if you can't fit the mitigation, then your project needs to be reduced, because it's too much impact on the resource area. Okay. All right, I will,
You say, you might not,
I might have to add a
you might
reg.
need all that space, but this might not be the right lot.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look at the buffer zone regulations and see how I fit this in. It's gonna take some,
Thought.
yeah, thought, but, let me take a stab at it for December, and I'll get back to you, December or January. Okay, next one, Jamie, was pervious surfaces that do not support vegetation in a B zone. So,
Well, it kinda gets grouped in, no?
yeah, so I wanna kinda do all of the buffer zone regs, and we may bring some more items that we have with the buffer zone regs to you in the next couple of months, so we can get that all done at once. But this was easy, we talked about this last week, you're losing a lot by not requiring, pervious surface that does not support natural vegetation such as gravel areas, stone areas, shell areas, dry laid patios, because they're pervious, without mitigation in the B zone.
Right, but I'm saying, wouldn't that be grouped into the previous that we were just discussing?
We
Yeah, I mean,
could,
this is,
yeah,
and then, yeah, it is what we were just discussing. It's a-
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
So
okay,
it's-
so, I'm sorry, but
No,
again,
no.
these notes were written before this past discussion, so, okay.
you're gonna put it back
Well-
in the mix and think about it.
Well, no, because the last discussion focused on 200 square feet of some sort of, and I'm just throwing this out there just for tonight, accessory use in the A zone. That we restricted to 200 in the A zone.
Right,
Okay,
This is, we're talking about
B zone.
B zone, pervious surfaces that do not support natural vegetation in a B zone
okay.
are not currently being mitigated for. And I feel that it should be, because we're just losing too much buffer zone. For example,
So it's in a B zone, it should be 2-1.
yes,
Kinda
any gravel in a B zone,
Simple.
that's what I think.
I'm gonna agree with Jen, but I would say to you that forever never interpreted that. I always mitigated for increases in the B zone. Some other engineer found that, and now everyone's jumped on the bandwagon of it.
But
I
not
think,
you,
I think, well, I mean,
you're tempted to.
you might be seeing some applications in the near future with that. But because it's the way it's written, I don't think that was your intention.
It was not.
I
It
don't
was
think
not the
your
intention,
I
but
think it
it's
was
the
a-
way it was
I think it was an
written.
oversight.
So I'm fixing that oversight.
Yeah, and I'm,
Okay.
That's why I would like to get all the buffer zone things done
Yep.
first, so I can get the buffer zone regs at least starting in maybe March or something,
Yeah,
put in
we
something.
pass them, and it doesn't have to go into the new book, but at least if we could adopt them.
Yeah.
By March.
Well, it would go into a new book, and we're gonna have other things, and it's fine. So, we're just seeing that, and we just want to close that loophole. Okay, and that's how, and again, and Betsy, if you could take a look at these since you crafted them, just, I just added any crease, it's like, so the red, when I look at the revision change, the red is what I've either added or deleted. If it's struck through, I'm deleting it, if it's red, I'm adding it, so. Okay,
You and I and Alyssa had talked about this
Yeah.
a year ago. and
Yeah.
I think we had agreed.
That we needed
everybody's
to
good
do
with that
something.
one? Okay. I'm just,
Also, I'm gonna bring to the board probably at a future meeting, there is this, idea, interpretation, that if the complete A zone is fully vegetated, then the B zone can be completely cleared. That's now what we're seeing, is that if the A zone is completely vegetated, that the B zone, almost by right, can be completely cleared. And I don't think that was the intent of the regulation
Yeah, but-
as well.
So Jen called me the other day, maybe yesterday, and mentioned this, and I said, well, remember we had just passed the rights of nature, and we had that project out on Central
Central.
Ave, and there were like 4 one-acre lots that by Bourne Pond, and the people wanted to basically clear cut the B, but delineate where the A was. And I mentioned, well, you know, if this is a rights of nature town, and you're cutting all those trees, and couldn't you designate a building envelope and save some of the big trees in the B zone? And he goes, yeah, I'm willing to do that. And so Jen went out and they
We saved all the
identified
hardwoods.
all
Yeah.
the hardwoods.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see something like that.
So, I don't know, maybe, we can, I'll bring that to you like I said, it's part of the buffer zone regs, so maybe in January we can talk about it, but it's this idea that if and Mike, how do you interpret it?
That's a tough one, but here's how there's different ways to look at it. So I've done a few projects before you where you have a pristine undeveloped lot. I remember one on Meadow Neck Road, and you had a coastal bank, ACEC, salt marsh, that
Was way away.
the defining no disturbance zone A was top of coastal bank, because 50 feet from the top of the bank was more restrictive than 100 feet from the salt marsh. And the people, of course, want to get as close to the water as they can, so the no disturbance zone A was 50 feet from the top of the coastal bank, which probably got you like 130 feet from the salt marsh or something, I don't even know. So you were by default meeting the 100-foot no disturbance. And it was woodland, so you put your limit of work right at the 50 foot from the top of the bank.
And
then
clear
you,
cut.
and then you have your
Clear cut,
no
yeah.
structure 10 feet, that you can't build less than 10 feet from the limit of work. So the house ends up 60 feet from the top of the coastal bank. I feel like that was the intent, because the A zone is completely intact, which is the zone that your mitigation regulations try to get applicants with degraded A zones to enhance with mitigation to try to get back the altered parts of the A zone. Does that make sense?
But the whole buffer zone is important.
The
So
whole-
we're not saying you couldn't do that. I'm just suggesting you identify where your building envelope is,
Yeah.
and then save important vegetation that's in the B zone, especially trees.
Yeah, a lot of times though, if it's like all wooded, something's gotta give, you know?
Well,
Like,
I'm
you
not
don't have
saying
to
you have
clear
to
cut
do
the
all
whole
of them.
thing, no, I'm not saying
Right.
clear cut the whole thing, but,
That's what I'm
that's the
moving towards.
extreme of it, that's
That's
the
what I'm
extreme
moving
of it.
towards. Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that's what's done all over town, as you know.
Yeah,
It makes developing easier for the developer.
I
Well-
mean, like
well, it
Mike's,
does,
I
but
remember when you had a moon
I think
penny,
it's healthier
we
for the
put that
town
live
to
and
leave
work
some of
right
those
on
big
that A
trees.
zone,
Yes.
10 feet, had you survey the trees within 25 feet of that, and then the B buffer zone would basically clear cut, wiped out lawn, house, fire pit, shed,
It depends on the size of the lot too.
outdoor kitchen.
Right.
Some of the
plunge pool.
lots are only like a half acre, and by the time you put a house in a little yard, you've cleared almost the entire B zone.
Right.
If you got 3 acres somewhere, you only do, no one wants to maintain all of that, you wouldn't clear cut all that.
Well, some people do.
Some-
Yeah, they do.
That's a tough one, because there is some language in here that says, and I'm paraphrasing, it is the goal of this regulation to, fully reclaim the no disturbance zone A where possible, or, mitigation can never exceed that which would completely fill the entire A zone. There's words in
Or
here,
something like,
Yeah,
but,
no, you're right.
yeah.
I mean, that's what first came with kind of the idea of a no disturbance buffer, but the whole buffer's important. The B buffer's important too.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so put that
Right, but if the bee buff is important, and you put rules in about not altering that, you basically, all projects are gonna be outside your jurisdiction completely, you know what I mean? Because you'll be more than 100 feet from every resource area buffer. You know, if you're 100 feet from a
Our
salt
guys would be
marsh,
shorter.
if you're 100 feet from top of a coastal bank,
Yeah.
with all your work, you're gonna be outside your jurisdiction.
Oh, well,
We'll bring that.
you, eventually, you'll be outside, but if you're gonna work in the B zone,
No, I didn't.
You-
It's in.
you can work in a B zone. If you have an undisturbed lot, you can work in the B zone, but you don't really have to clear cut it.
Right.
That's not the interpretation out there right now.
Well, I know, that's,
Yeah.
that's where we're going.
But, so there's a lot of discretion there between fully clear cutting and creating just like 10 feet around the house. Like, where do you cross the line that you're not, you're violating nature's rights, you know what I mean? When do you cross that line?
Well,
That's-
we used to have the 4-inch DBH trees that had to be in the lot, and, you know, specimen trees, remember we'd ask people to protect them, you know, this oak over here, you know, so, you know, even though it was in the B, would have them put fence around it so it would be protected. I mean, those are sort of the case by case on beautiful wooded lots with big hardwoods on
Right.
them. You know, could you just tweak your house, move it over 10 feet instead of taking down these 2 trees? And I mean, most of the time, a lot of people work with us on that,
Yeah,
but I don't know.
It's a tough one. That's gonna be hard, each case-by-case basis.
well, it
and-
will be, it depends on what you're building it with.
But you're always worried about setting a precedent too, because Jen's always worried about, well, if we let Mike do it, he's gonna remember and the next time it
Yes.
applies, it's gonna.
You have remembered mine.
Now we know you were the slowest to catch on to this one. You shouldn't have admitted it.
I'm gonna file a bunch of amendments to.
You know what, we'll
I'm
bring some talking points for other parts of the resource area buffer regs to the next 1 or 2 meetings. We'll bring some talking points so we can kind of flush this discussion out more. Does that work for you, Jamie?
Does that work for you, Jamie?
Okay, just so we can stay on kind of point here, we're going through this, and then we can bring up other sections of the buffer zone regulations that we find either concerning, problematic, something like that. Like Alyssa just brought up one, we recently saw one where because it says, you know, you must fill zone A on the lot. We recently had one on Minot Road where the zone A was just completely, it was non-existent because there was a house, a road, and then a little bit of zone A on the subject property. And even though they were increasing the footprint of the structure and everything like that, they only had to mitigate a tiny little bit because that was the only zone A on that particular lot. But the zone A really was non-existent because we had a road, another house, and then the resource area. Corner of Grand Ave and Minot.
Remember that one?
Mara Vista and Minot Road.
Yep.
So, just something to think about, we're just saying that, you know, we may not be, we may just wanna look at that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a difference between a 1/4 acre lot and a 10 acre lot.
Correct. And this is what we kind of grapple with. Next one, plant spacing and mitigation and restoration. We gave you thing. We'd still like to hear from some of the designers. So we'll just put this on another one and see if we can't get some of the landscape professionals here for another meeting to talk more about plant spacing. I think 3 feet, as we discussed, is entirely too tight, but we can't require, we have to make it easy enough for your typical homeowner who's just doing kind of like a small addition to be able to put in their mitigation without having to hire a
Landscape professional.
restoration or design firm. It's just, you know, the engineers put a little bubble on the plan, this is where your mitigation goes, we need to make it easy for the landscape, the property owner who may want to do it themselves, or hire just a local landscape company without hiring a ecological restoration firm to design a mitigation area for them for a small project. That's putting too much on the homeowner. But at the same time, we wanna make it so the plants survive. So again, we'd still like to have a few more discussions with some of the landscape professionals before we come back and say,
But you still have to have a base.
yeah, we still have to
You
have a
still have to have
base.
something to start with, so, like we talked about last time, was, you know,
4 feet.
if we keep the 3 feet on center as a baseline, and then Mike, you come in and argue that, you know, we're gonna use X, Y, Z, and it should be 4 foot on center, or, I mean, I don't think we've ever had a problem with when people come in and do that. I mean, we really only had one problem with one person who demanded, but,
I
If-
still think 3 feet is tight. I mean, as a,
so you wanna change the
Just say you're
base.
4
Just to 4 feet.
Base
it's a
to
base
4
to
feet.
4 feet. And it doesn't even require a reg change, it's basically written into your orders of conditions.
So
it's
we
kind
change
of
it to
like a
4
follow-
feet, and then if there's certain species that require more, then they
Yeah.
can argue at that point,
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Okay. Which we've seen very recently.
That we can implement
I don't remember
immediately.
which one, but there was one, it was 5 foot,
Yeah.
A couple, yeah,
so that's easy,
yeah.
Yeah.
that's done.
It
That
also,
was
it also, honestly, it really depends on the location of the plant, how the plant is maintained. You know, from personal experience, I had an arrowwood in my backyard. Just over in a little planting bed, left alone, the thing was enormous. It's twice the size of Dawn, taller than Dawn, everything, it was big, it was it was beautiful. But
But that, now you can create the opposite problem, where if you say 4 foot on center and they put 1 gallon, whatever, that only grows to 2 feet,
Yeah,
so,
so, but again, I left it alone, it was maintained over there,
And
you
had
know,
no
it wasn't in a
competition,
buffer
probably.
being cut or anything else, it was just allowed to do its thing. If it's allowed to grow as your order of conditions say into its full and mature form, that is the form it's gonna take. I have yet to see one probably out in the field, like the one I saw in my yard.
We had a project a few years ago, prior to COVID. And I don't think it was you, but somebody came in and said, can we do something about these buffer plants? And it was off Mill Road, and I don't know what the plants were at the edge of the lawn, but they were like 12 feet tall and solid all the way across.
Yeah.
So we allowed them to,
So why don't
Switch.
we, and what did Tim have to say? Yeah, why don't we just start implementing 4 feet and see where we go from there? We're gonna have to do a gallon size, because I do not wanna see 1 gallon containers 4 feet on center. Because as Maury said, this is your 1 gallon container. That's your plan.
It's basically bare root.
Bare root.
well, that's what you're gonna get if you start with 4 feet. Okay,
no, 4 feet,
In a gallon size.
We put a gallon
2
size.
gallon or 3 gallon.
2 to 3 gallon.
The gallon size and the spacing is specified in your orders of conditions. So we can modify the gallon size, we can modify the spacing without a reg change.
So 4 feet, 2 to 3 gallons.
Okay.
so is that where
Yeah,
we're leaving that 4
Leave
foot
it at
on
that.
center, 2 to 3 gallon,
right, unless people wanna come in and argue.
for more,
Right,
right? Okay, for larger,
not argue,
okay.
propose.
All right, next up, V-zone enclosures, square feet or percentage of footprint for new construction.
I'm getting over there. Okay, so, we were unable to talk to building, so a couple of developments with this. One, talk to Shannon Holtz from the county, she's a deputy director and the floodplain specialist for the Cape Cod Cooperative Extension. She is the Cape's flood zone manager, like, all the towns go to Shannon when we have questions. I called her up and asked her how many other Cape towns restrict the enclosures in a V-zone. I said, could you put a list together? And she goes, yes, you. Because that list is easy, it's you. Falmouth is the only one that is restrictive when it comes to enclosures for houses in a V zone. Great, that's a good thing.
So every other town allows,
Full breakaway panel. A couple of developments.
so how did we get with 200? How did we get there?
No breakaway.
Because we don't allow breakaway panels.
Because we don't allow breakaway panels.
Probably because, and I haven't checked, and I don't know how many other towns have land subject to coastal storm flowage regulations. Mike, do you know?
Well, I know Mashpee does,
Mashpee does,
and that one I don't think does.
yeah. So we have specific regulations for land subject to coastal storm flowage, which regulates construction in an A zone and a V zone. And in that regulation, it says that all construction in V zone shall be on open pilings. We started to allow, and like, I remember when I first came, almost 20 years ago, you didn't allow anything. It was strictly a staircase up, and then, since then, you know, we've been seeing elevators and mudrooms, and so, you know, we have to decide, again, whether you want a square footage or a percentage. It's gonna be an ongoing discussion. I reached out to the county, I have yet to talk to building. What I do know is that if and when the state amends the Wetlands Protection Act regulations to add a section for land subject to coastal storm flowage, as drafted, currently drafted, it's not been adopted yet, and God knows when it's gonna be adopted. I've been hearing about these regulations for 25 years, and I am actually not kidding. I first heard about these regulations when I worked for Horsley and Witten, 25 years ago. As drafted, open pilings only. How they're gonna handle enclosures at the state level, I do not know. We cannot be less restrictive than the state. We can be, because of our home rule authority, we can be more restrictive than the state,
No less.
but we cannot be less restrictive than the state. So if we come up with something, we add it to our regulation, and the state finally decides to adopt these regulations as currently drafted, which I do think that is gonna change, because they're not practical the way they are currently
I
drafted.
mean, that's totally unreasonable.
But as,
You've gotta get into the,
We
gotta
may
get
have to
into it.
change our reg again. I'm just throwing that out there.
right, but as it stands right now, our regulations require open pilings
Open
Correct.
pilings,
and no breakaway panels.
no breakaway panels.
And we have been allowing, for conversation, 200 square feet of enclosure.
but sometimes up to 300 square feet.
Sorry?
Sometimes up to 300 square feet.
Right, but our baseline has been 200, so we have to allow something.
We have,
just
and that I think,
Practicality dictates.
exactly.
You gotta have a stairway, it's reasonable to have it out of the weather.
Elevators.
If you're going up 12 feet, you gotta have an elevator,
Correct,
and it's fair to say they need a little bit of storage there.
correct.
So now it becomes, is
How many square
200,
feet?
adequate, or should it be more? And I had suggested the percentage only because, I mean, it could be up to 200 square feet, but most of the houses are bigger than what a percentage, like I did, one over on Surf Drive was 1,500 square feet for a footprint. So 15%, if we went that route, just for example,
Yeah.
came out to 227 square feet. So is it simpler to say it's a percentage, or is it simpler to say it's 200?
I
And
think
we
it-
don't allow,
I think it's better to give just a number,
yeah,
because it's the effect on the environment.
okay,
Anything that's there, if we have a big storm and the sea's pouring through there, it's gonna be jumbled. So the more you
but
allow.
the upside to that is, if we do the 200 square feet, and now we're changing to allow a shed, that kinda negates the problem we've been having with people saying, well, we need room to store stuff. It's the deer in the headlights, I just confused the hell out of her.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Well,
that's
easy.
it, no, but you brought,
Yeah.
you brought up something we all have to think about, that's why the deer,
Yeah.
that's why you're getting the stares from everybody.
Wouldn't
brought
that
up a good
shed,
point.
wouldn't the shed be the bite at the apple that you keep talking about? So if you have a shed to store your stuff, you don't need an enclosure.
But you
But
still
then
need
where's
an
your
enclosure for
elevator
your
and
stair and your
staircase?
elevator.
You do
Well, then
need
you can
that.
only have a 100 square foot shed instead of a 200 square foot shed. Cause that, well, if you're just saying you can have 200 square feet, you use it any way you want. You can put an elevator in and call it a day, or a stairway and an elevator, and then you get a 100 square foot shed, or you only put this, you know, an elevator, and now you have a 150 square
Is
foot
that
shed.
enough room for,
Yeah.
you
For
build
an elevator, yeah,
for an elevator and a staircase?
yeah.
Your 200 square foot comes from the regulation that you're improving a structure without elevating it. So don't blend those two things together. So that 200 square feet that everybody's fixated on
You're right.
comes from additions in the V zone and not requiring the structure to go up on pilings.
That's that apple.
That's that bite of the apple. When when you're taking the entire structure down and you're putting it up on pilings, then what are you gonna allow? Don't get fixated on the
You're
200.
I forgot about
The percentage could be dangerous only if they start adding the percent coverage of decks and everything else. If you want footprint of enclosed space and not the deck,
Well, again, that would come under definition, but
Yeah.
that's fine. So if we wanna do a square footage, then begs the question, what's the footage?
so I'm gonna turn to my builders and say, what is a reasonable square footage to allow for an entryway, a staircase, storage, and an elevator?
200, I mean, you know, an elevator's 100 square feet all day long.
Okay, so that's what I need to know,
Yeah.
is I don't know how big these elevators are, so. If an
Um,
elevator is 100 square feet,
it. You're not leaving much for a stairway or
that's-
storage. You're
Yeah.
gonna-
That's a huge elevator.
Well, you
It's
figure a
10 by
stairway,
10.
a stairway's gonna be, 7 or 8 feet by 10 feet,
Yeah, it's 10.
'cause 12 feet
Well, why
high.
don't you guys work it out, and then we can,
Yeah, I
next
think
time
that's,
we can come up with a number. Why don't we let people work out,
noodle with it, yeah.
yeah.
yeah, that's fine. I'm not saying we have to
We'll take a
decide this
suggestion
tonight.
from you too.
You know,
Well, I'm about to submit a request for certificate of compliance for one that you guys approved where you allowed 300 square feet.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
yeah, and there's one on Surf
And I
Drive
went
we
there
like
and I
4.
looked at it and it's the right size, and everything else is open, and the elevator's tiny, because they took the smallest elevator, so they had more left over for storage. Cause they really needed storage, I opened this, they showed me their storage and it's jammed with stuff, kayaks and stuff like that,
But also, I mean, if people have a lawn and they have a driveway, they're gonna need a lawnmower and a snow blower. I mean, there's stuff you need to have, I
But the-
mean, a lot of the
Kayak,
houses that are by the
patio
water,
furniture.
people aren't there in the winter, but there are people who are
Grills,
here.
rubbish cans.
Yeah, all of this. You have to allow for some storage.
Yeah, I think 300 is not, can you send the footprint of what they have there?
Is it Skelly off of Edgewater? We have it,
Okay.
we have it. Okay, let's, again, just think about it. It's not an easy kind of decision to make, but it's one we have to decide, to give clear guidance to the engineers. Because right now, it's case by case, and the numbers are everywhere, and we need to just provide some clear guidance. Correct, Mike?
Yeah, because we don't know what to tell them, so we go to Jen, and she doesn't know what to tell them, kind of, because you're the ultimate approving authority. So
So,
she tries to advise us, but she's always cautious.
Saying, but it's up to the,
Yes,
It's up to the board.
And
we
when
might
you
have a
think about
cranky commissioner some night.
so we might as well just apply for 1,000 square feet, and you just beat us up at 300.
Well, when they put the house up on pilings, they've already improved the environment by
Right.
getting the structure out of a V zone.
Right.
So, just say it's a 2,000 square foot house that now is up in the air. We just took 2,000 square feet of structure that was a potential hazard
Right,
out of harm's way and out of the, you know,
hopefully, out
hopefully,
of harm's.
yeah.
Hopefully.
So how much are we willing to
Yeah,
put back in?
yeah, that's, I think, the
Well,
thing.
you
How much are we
improved it.
willing to put back in after
What's-
they've,
It says they have to have access, right?
Correct.
They always
Yeah.
have stair and elevator, so why don't we just eliminate that, give them the stairway and the elevator, and just 200 square foot, they can do whatever they want with it. That's what the shed, I don't know if anyone else said that, but that seems to be just separated, given the elements that they have to have there. Them do, if they want a 100 square foot elevator, fine, if they want a 10 square foot elevator or stairs, you know those two things are gonna have to be there.
Well, they need some
And then just
kind
use
of
the-
access to
Yeah.
the next floor.
yeah, that's what he's saying.
That's what he's saying.
That's what he said, that you have to give them that.
Yeah. So just give them that. And
Yeah,
just
but
200
so-
square feet for the extra, for everything else we just named, the patio furniture, the garbage, the boats, whatever, they get 200 square feet. It makes it simple.
Makes it
So
simple,
why don't
but
we
it's
say
not
300
practical.
square feet, and that
200 square
includes,
feet is a lot, that's a 14 by 14 shed.
Yeah, but when you're putting in an elevator and then you're putting in the
No, the
staircase.
elevator's out. The elevators don't include the elevator in the square footage.
Oh,
Elevator,
Oh,
stairs,
You're saying
okay, I'm
above and
sorry,
beyond.
Ron,
Above and beyond.
I'm
okay.
sorry, I didn't get that either.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that's what I missed.
So I
So,
just ran some quick calculations. If you, put a stairway in, call it 4 feet wide, you're gonna need a run of about 13 feet. So that's 13 by 4 is 52 square feet for the stairs. When you walk in the door, you're gonna want probably a 4 by 4 landing, so you now, you take 13 and 4 is 17 feet. Now, let's say you wanna put a 5 by 5 elevator in there. And that's including the structure, the walls and the, you know, it's not just the
tube, it's
space
not-
inside.
It's not a bank tube, John.
teleportation device.
So roughly, you'd have to create
Jetson.
a square that, or a rectangle that was 10 feet wide by 17. I haven't quite gotten to the, that's 170 square feet. So that's what you kinda need. I would wanna refine that and check it. But that's kinda what you need for what we're describing, which is a stairway, a landing area, and an elevator.
Before you have
And-
any storage.
and then you're
Before
gonna
any
have to add
storage.
storage to that.
All right, well, then you got 30 feet left over. Or you can put a closet, you could put, well, you would, depending on how you lay it out, you can put a closet in there. Or you have a separate space in that building where you can put storage.
Well, that's what Ron is saying, is you take the utility as independent, and then what would allow.
Right.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
a utility
basically, I'm
garage.
trying to get upstairs. I'm not worried about storage yet.
Right.
And that, so what I'm saying is, you're gonna need 170 feet, give or take.
Minimum, yeah.
I think for simplicity.
You had once had it.
Whatever the square footage is
Seacoast
inclusive,
Shores West,
just for simplicity, so.
yeah, Seacoast Shores West,
So to your
pretty
point,
sure.
if we
It
needed
had to get up,
150 square feet,
had to go on
then what
pilings,
more we're gonna allow?
but they had two
Call
sheds.
it a total.
That's the one, Skelly.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right.
Same as-
You
And we
limit
ended
it
up
to
300.
and you let them keep one of the two sheds.
As an engineer, you're supposed to say that.
Because that was already there.
Yeah, you took one shed away, leave
yeah,
one.
let us
Yeah.
run some numbers, because I mean, I had 2 sheds on my old property, and the smaller of the 2, and I just asked Don how big it was. I was able to store 3 patio sets, kayaks, a grill, a deck box, all that. All the stuff that was associated with my outdoor patio space was put in that shed.
How big was it?
I'm gonna ask him. I'll find out. It was the smaller of the 2 sheds on my property, on my old property.
May
So
I-
let's do that, everybody kinda think about what
Think about it.
they think they'd want, we'll come up with, you know, a basic elevator footprint
Yeah.
and stairway footprint.
It's, from what we've seen out in the field, is completely unrealistic to sit there and say you can't have any storage. As Maury said, you need to store garbage barrels, they wanna secure kayaks, they have patio furniture they have to store in the wintertime, fire pits. deck boxes.
Snow blowers,
Yeah, I mean, it's,
Bicycles.
bicycles.
you need storage. If these houses are elevated on
All right,
high.
2,000 square feet, no more.
So anyway, think about it, guys. These aren't easy discussions, we're not gonna solve them in 1 or 2 days, but I think we're being really productive.
The theory is, we have this discussion now, so we don't have a discussion like this during the regular hearing.
Correct,
Right.
correct. Okay, long-term monitoring, we just continue to say file an RDA for long-term monitoring. I know your issue, we don't issue orders from conditions in perpetuity, we don't issue COCs, with long-term maintenance in perpetuity, because then we just lose track of the projects. So, you can permit a project for 3 years, sometimes 5, in very rare special instances, like the town's comprehensive dredge permit, that's a 10-year permit.
But is it illegal to, if we gave Mike a permit for a project that has a standard 3-year order of conditions, we can't ask for a, well, for lack of a better word, call it a monitoring report in every 5 years? I mean, how healthy are the plants, or, you know, are they still alive?
No,
You can't go beyond the
the
order
life of
condition?
the permit. So they have extensions, or if they wanna do follow-up work, which, I'll take, for example, the projects that, Wilkinson is undertaking over on Great Bay, they're filing RDAs for continued maintenance on their fiber roll array projects. If they have to do some
So by
spot treatment.
default, they're gonna give us a report, because they're telling us why they wanna maintain it.
Correct. They want it,
What's the
But I think what we're looking for is that if we require somebody to put some mitigation in, we wanna make sure that it lived longer than just the 3 years.
oh,
Because
correct.
we're finding projects that are coming back to us under an enforcement order because it was all removed or it just died off or what have you. So there has to be a mechanism to keep an eye on that. I don't know what it is, but.
What's the
That
monitoring
also
report look like?
goes to
Is it a
invasive
narrative
control
or
projects.
pictures or?
It's usually a report, both. We get pictures, we ask for like, when they install them, to pick kind of, when you're doing something like that, you know,
So
particular
the pictures,
stations.
pictures are dated and the description of what's going on?
Correct.
What went right and what went wrong?
What went right, what went wrong, what survival, what percentage survival of the plants, what's, you know,
What
been
invasives,
reinvaded with, invasives.
percentage of invasives.
Yeah. that are- yeah. So,
Because you do have that condition that shall be maintained in perpetuity, which has no teeth once you get the COC,
Except if you come back to ask for something
except
else.
for that,
Or you're driving by.
or you're driving by.
it's difficult, Ron.
It is.
But something we can put further thought. Vista pruning, that was interesting, thank you for your comments, Maury. That's gonna be a tough one. So Lori has downloaded, the regs from the different towns, regs, guidelines, from some other towns. We haven't had a chance to kind of fully go through them. The problem, Maury, when you brought up the percentage, and it was a great idea, but the problem is, when we go out onto these large most of the times when we go out on Vista prunes, especially if they've been historic Vista prunes, we don't require like a survey. If now you're going on a percentage of a property, that's going to require a survey to do a Vista prune. So, I don't know if that's what the board wants to do, or not. It's an interesting, I understand that 25-foot window is a bit restrictive. Maybe we could look at widening that window. We can look at the percentage, but from staff's perspective, it's very difficult to evaluate in the field without a survey. So if you wanted to go to percentages, we'd be requiring surveys for all Vista prunings, because we'd have to. because we don't know, we can't go out there and go, okay, what's 25% of this 3-acre parcel? And where are these little pockets of 25% that they want?
Yeah.
So that is the difficulty in doing a percentage, as opposed to,
Where did we come with 25 foot?
it's been there since I started 20 years ago.
I think we did that, again, it was with Rockwell. I think we had the 25 foot,
Yeah,
and
'cause
that
they're
was when we
long
also had,
Yeah.
because that was after Hurricane Bob that we wrote everything for, that's why ours was so restricted, because we were all horrified of what happened on Surf Drive. It was like open pilings, no more of this, and, you know, so, you know, no breakaway walls, no rubbish cans,
But
no
it's,
bikes.
I mean, it's difficult enough for these guys to go out and talk to the arborist, you know, even with a 25-foot vista window. We have to go back multiple times, cause it's not staked, it's only 2 stakes, whereas the vista prunes are,
Oh, I know, nightmare,
yeah,
there.
they are, and we wanna make it easy for the homeowner that just wants a small little vista window without requiring them to, you know, get a survey that may, you know,
Well,
cost
who's
them.
telling them it's 25 feet now? The person cutting the stuff. Right?
Yeah,
Because we don't require a survey.
no, but we go out, we measure it, we meet with the arborists, we do, we have them flag them out. You know, we try to follow up on it,
So that could be anything then.
yeah.
So if, even if you did it percentage, it came out to, 56 feet, they still have to measure it out.
So I don't know, it's something you guys can think about, I don't know what you wanna go with that.
It wasn't on my highest priority, it's just, you know, the town taxes everybody for a view. People live on the water for a view, otherwise they would live in Hatchville. So,
Hey,
I know, my daughter lives there, she doesn't, she wants a view, but she can't afford one. So I just was thinking, you know, in my world where I see everybody and what they have, some people, they don't want a view. I have a woman that has 7 acres, and you can't even see the water, it's a forest. She doesn't care, she loves it like that. And then there are other people that, you know, have 100 or 200 feet on the water, and they would really like to see the water. And then when they have everything grow to their natural state, they're like, well, that's rather redundant. So, you know, here we are, you plant a buffer, whether it's mitigation or restoration, and then it grows up to be, you know, viburnums are 17 feet tall, like the one next to your shed. Then they go, well, this, you know, then they just go cut it anyway. I mean, that's what they do. I mean, I'm
Yes.
sorry, but that's what they do.
No, and we know that,
Yeah.
we're not living in a bubble.
so how do we help them
We
to?
see it out in the field. So anyway,
All right,
it's
let's
just,
just skip, that one's, again, I
it
just threw it
just
out there.
warrants further discussion, I'm trying to make it easy for the agents when they go out in the field, so it's very clear to them, it's very clear to the property owner, it's very clear to the arborist,
Inconsistent.
and
Right.
consistent.
Yeah.
But you're never gonna be able to be consistent for the property either on Jenkins Pond, Seacoast Shores versus Penzance Associates. You know, it's just, they're apples and oranges.
Okay.
But it does warrant further thought and
discussion.
investigation on our part to see what other towns are doing and how they're handling it.
Again, it wasn't like screaming at me, it was just,
Yeah, but it's something that comes up. Ooh, one of my favorites, drip strips and an A and B buffer zone. Oh, but we have it. Oh, it didn't make it on? Oh. Where's my agenda?
Hey, look at what?
yeah, it's not on there.
All right, well, we're gonna have to put it on there next time. Drip strips.
We had in your red hash mark one.
Okay, well, that's me just jumping the gun, so.
It was on page,
Oh, yeah. Also, one of the things we're experiencing is vistas over multiple properties. Does the board want to allow this or not, especially if the property, so let's say the most waterfront property already has a vista, do we wanna allow an additional vista across that property for a neighboring property.
So both of them have to apply.
But do you want to allow that? Do you want to allow vistas over multiple properties for people that aren't currently either taxed or
I was
that?
just gonna say, I think the assessors would like to know if we do that, because then they will be able to tax the people more for a view, because they're taxed for a view.
But people who live, say, up Sipawissa, that look out and see the water, they're taxed for a view.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
so-
even if they don't have a vista prune, they can see the water,
Yeah.
they're taxed.
We've recently had a couple in North Falmouth, the big one down on,
Woods, Quistit,
in Quistit.
and the one on
and-
Old Dock Road.
Yep.
Meadowneck Road, you have that one?
So
Right.
it's something to think about whether or not you want to allow vistas across multiple properties.
Obviously, if we did allow it, the person whose property it was gonna go across would have to give permission.
Correct.
Okay.
But what if that person already has a vista?
No, I
Do you want
understand what you're
another
saying.
vista cut through the buffer?
Yeah, that person might not want another person. I mean, might want a vista through my
Separate.
yard, and I might say no.
Well, the one on Old Dock, remember, that was gonna end up with two vistas on it.
Correct, that's why I'm bringing that up.
Yeah, I'm not agreeing with that, I'm just saying if there's a property behind, one behind the other, this guy applies for a vista prune, this one applies for a vista prune, it's up to them to coordinate them
To get
together.
them lined up.
But
Yeah,
not
they gotta line it
multiple
up.
on one property, but multiple properties, it's just multiple applications.
But you can't always get them lined up. I mean, I might have a vista prune here, but he might live here and want a vista prune out here.
Well, I think that's what.
That's irrelevant,
That's what
it's irrelevant to
Jamie's
us,
saying.
it's two
You
separate
either
applications.
be in the line or you don't get it.
I think what the question really is do we allow it so that the person farthest removed can see the ocean?
Right.
And
So that's a matter of, if there's 4 properties, all 4 of them have to apply for a vista prune. But it's up to the 4 of them to coordinate where they line up, so that this one back here gets a view.
And the only one that needs a permit for the vista is the person on the water. It's in our jurisdiction.
Right,
Yeah, within jurisdiction.
right.
Could be 2 properties.
But let's assume there's 2, just for the conversation, then 2 of them have to apply.
And one of them's the town.
So, I mean, it's
Don't throw.
interesting.
Or an HOA.
So I think this comes up because, I mean, we were kind of thrown off guard about the one in Quistit, which was going over 5 properties. You know, it seemed a bit excessive, it was, 600, 700, 800 feet away. You know, I can see, you know, somebody across the street from a waterfront property, you know, talking to their neighbor, hey, can I open up a little pocket of a view so I can see the water? I can see that. But when we were going over 5 separate properties, over, like I said, 600 to 800 feet, that seemed a bit excessive to us.
How many of those properties
But wait a minute,
were in jurisdiction?
1, maybe 2.
So those are the 2 that matter. Because the
I
other
think the
ones,
other ones could clear.
they're
cut
outside
Yes.
of jurisdiction, that's between the
Yeah.
property owners.
True,
They could make their vista 500 feet wide.
yeah, true.
So
So like-
Viewcrest Drive, back in the 60s when they developed that, they had a vista requirement for every property, and the houses were built like this as you went up the road.
Yeah.
And it was in their restricted, in their deed, that everybody had to keep that area open so that every single house saw the water. Unfortunately, it was only for 50 years, and now it's expired. And everybody started to let their, you know, I'm not gonna prune it, costs too much or whatever. And it's really sad because the view is spectacular, and now they've gone and got abatements because now they can't see the water. So the tax revenue doesn't come in. So there are pluses and minuses,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah.
Okay, something to warrant more discussion and thought, just, you brought it up last time where you
Yeah.
wanted it on, we're just telling you, you know, we wanna make it easy for the staff in the field.
Oh, I didn't bring up the over all the other properties. I wasn't even thinking of that.
Oh, okay.
That was, you guys thought about that one.
Yeah.
I tried to forget that one.
Okay. Hmm? Classifying structures on the
if we're going by the agenda, the next thing is V-zone 25-foot setback.
Okay. So, this is something I've been talking with Shannon about. And unfortunately, our GIS system, because we could bring you examples, but it's not really coming up on GIS right now. There's something called the limit of moderate wave action. Yeah, action or activity, LIMWA. So, starting in January, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, Jamie, Courtney, starting in January, properties within the LIMWA are gonna be required to be built to V-zone standards.
Properties where and what?
Limit of moderate wave action. So what it does, it goes V-zone, and in certain areas, there is a limit of moderate wave action, and then an A-zone. In the building code, correct?
There's limits of moderate wave action or activity sometimes in A zones.
Yeah,
Like
so,
you're out of the V zone and you're in an A zone, but there's still some waves, smaller waves,
yeah,
or
so
waves.
So
the
it's like
building
flat,
code,
I mean, that's why I always argue that it's 25 feet is fair enough to have the Falmouth V-zone.
so what I'm
Because it's-
getting at is, when looking at this, that LIMWA kind of, a lot of times is following our 25-foot setback.
Right,
It's really difficult for the staff sometimes to kind of guide someone, especially if that 25-foot offset is in the middle of their new, like the new proposed house. It's like, well, the house has to go up on pilings. And we've been successful in enforcing that, but I don't know. I brought it up in 2014 when FEMA changed. I asked the board if you wanted to get rid of the 25-foot offset. The board said no. I'm just bringing this to your attention that starting in January, properties in an A zone that also fall in this limit of moderate wave activity are gonna have to be built to V zone standards.
What is it,
so,
I don't have a map to show you what it is because our GIS, it's coming up really wonky on our
so
GIS
the
right
one
now.
thing I wanted changed, and we had conformed with this, is that if you have a coastal bank, the V-zone hits partway up the coastal bank. And beyond that, it really doesn't make sense to have a Falmouth V-zone, and in fact, you don't. It goes from a V-zone to an X-zone. So if there's an X-zone, we don't count the Falmouth V-zone. And
Though it's
basically,
not written in the regs that way, so we can add
well, I
it.
know, I mentioned that we should change that several years ago, but then because we never, we just did that,
As opposed to V zones that then have A's, AE zones before
yeah,
you.
exactly, if it's all
There's
flat,
nothing
you can see,
disrupting the
it's not
wave.
like you have a Colgate shield, that it's gonna stop here. If it's flat, waves are gonna, and wave force is gonna propagate inland.
Well, that's what we try to tell people when they ask us about this V-zone or the V-zone offset, We're like, the wall of water coming at your house is not gonna respect a line on plan.
And I think that's why they have this limit of moderate wave
Yeah.
activity coming,
Yeah.
because.
So
they
it's kind of
recognize-
we've already anticipated that years ago.
Correct.
With this Falmouth V-zone.
Except I didn't know, it's not written to, if it's V to X, you don't have to have a 25. That is.
But I had
you-
said that in
Yeah, yeah.
meetings.
Right.
I said we shouldn't count this as a V-zone because it's an X-zone.
So do you want to just change the offset to V zones to A zones, and then we can revise the reg that if it's a V to an X, it does not require
Correct.
the 25-foot offset? And we'll take a baby step like that?
Yeah, I think that's,
Okay.
Well, when we mirror the
I have a
FEMA
question
thing
about-
the moderate wave activity.
about this moderate wave action, is that mapped?
Yes,
All right.
it is
So
mapped.
that's important.
It is mapped.
Cause if it's mapped, then that's a little different than we have a blanket 25-foot.
Right, and eventually we'll have, when the map's adopted, then we'll adopt it. It hasn't been adopted yet.
Instead of the
Right.
instead of the 25-foot V zone.
Yeah.
But you said it was gonna be in January?
That's what
That's-
Shannon,
that's-
that's what
that's
Shannon
what I'm
said,
getting
that
at.
the new building code, as adopted, requires structures in this limit
Limit of moderate
wave action.
Yeah, yeah. It took me forever to get
That
it.
those, that
Limo,
Linois.
limois.
that those structures, as currently mapped, will be required to be built to V-zone standards.
So can I ask a question as a layman? Why haven't I have not heard any of this, and, I mean,
I never have heard it before
so,
tonight.
is this just gonna be another big surprise that the state or the federal government dumps on everybody? That they have all these grandiose ideas to build their house, and then they find out that it's gonna be on stilts in January?
I did not amend the building code.
I know, but this is why people get hostile.
I did not amend the state building code.
So now they're between us and the building department, and the building code, and the energy people.
I'd be
No wonder
happy
nobody
to
can
have,
afford to build a house.
I'd be
And the
happy.
new nitrogen
Why do you think I
sensitive
gave up my
IA septic
license?
systems.
When did you hear about this?
It depends when it comes into play though, because
It's
there's a,
been being talked about in conjunction with the DEP reg
Delay
changes that
process.
you keep
Yeah.
saying you've heard about for 25 years, but this is separate from that, right?
Separate from that.
That's DEP.
I'd be happy to
Where are the
see if
maps?
Shannon would like to come,
Oh, that'd be awesome.
come down and explain this to the board and to the local consulting
How about
community.
a December meeting?
Yeah,
We'll do
December.
our
Yeah, I
meeting.
can find out when Shannon's schedule is. I mean, December's kinda tough because it's holidays, but, she'd be happy to come down. She's always, available. She's always offered to come in and talk to the board about this, about your 25-foot offset versus this limois that's going into effect. So I'd be happy to schedule Shannon. I'll
Yeah.
find out if she's available in December or January.
And there are maps we can see, can you guys?
Yes,
But
That'd
I
be
can
great
tell you
to see.
about that.
yeah.
But am I correct in you having said that if part of the house is in the Falmouth V zone, we already
We've
require
already
it to go up?
required it to go up,
All right.
correct.
So we're ahead of the curve.
So we're kinda ahead of the
All
curve,
right,
but.
well, I will,
So the
schedule
whole house
Shannon.
has to go up. So
Even if it's,
Well, I don't know.
if you, I can
So-
tell you about the maps. I can tell you about the maps. So if you
That's-
Google
there's a house and that's a lot.
FEMA Map
This is a-
Center,
this is the V zone.
it gives you a little interactive thing where you can type in
So
an
this whole
address,
thing would have to go up.
and you type in the address, and
This is the V zone?
if the maps are working,
And
here's
the
the-
map
Yeah.
comes up, and you can see, you gotta get used to how they look, but there's all kinds of different lines on
If we
there,
did
and
the
there is
math,
one line that
And
is this limit of
regulation,
moderate wave
I
action.
should say, the whole thing has.
So you could,
And it's
if a
not
part of it is
everywhere.
in there.
it's not
Right.
everywhere, it's like, you have these A zones that go way up in the upper reaches, like way up into Green Pond or something. The limit of moderate wave action is gonna not go way up there, it's gonna probably
It's the outer
stop somewhere
coast
near the Green
area.
Pond Bridge or
Bridge,
something,
yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? Cause
So-
by then the waves have like dissipated down to no wave.
but if
Shannon
it's
is
mapped out, then it'd
very
be easier for
knowledgeable.
us, because it's just,
Yeah, I wouldn't rely on a local GIS maps for any of this, cause I've seen differences between the formal FEMA map and our local GIS map.
And GIS, we just use as a tool, we tell
General.
people that all the
And
time.
it says there's a disclaimer on it.
Yeah, the GIS is only being used as a tool, it is not surveyed, it's not field confirmed, and it's not done by a surveyor. So that when people want to know if their properties are in a flood zone, if they really wanna know, go get a survey. We use this as a tool, if it's close, you're gonna go need a survey.
well,
And they go, well, why can't you go and just give us the map? Because these maps may not be 100% accurate. So, I will schedule Shannon. I think it'll be really informative
That
for
would be
all of
helpful.
you. She's great, so I will see when her availability is.
all right. I'm not sure I understand what this is, specify no structure zone and limit of work setback?
Yes. Noted that on there.
you clever to
Yeah.
know LAW?
Which
that's
one is
limited
this?
work?
That's just.
Aren't you clever to know that?
Oh,
limited work?
this is actually just
Who
adding,
set that?
so
I thought about it.
just writing somewhere in the regulations that there's a no structure zone of 10 feet from that limit of work. Right now, it's basically, there's something written in the preamble that we can enforce a no structure zone,
Right.
but it's not specifically specified
It's
anywhere.
10 feet.
10
Yep.
feet's not written
It-
anywhere. for your
So,
own.
we just wanna add it 10 feet in.
You just wanna have better enforcement of the limit
Correct.
of work.
Yeah,
Okay.
so Mike's not like, well, I have 2 feet, here, just picking on you, Mike. You're the only one
Why
here,
we
I don't have
invited
any,
you.
last
Well,
week I
from-
picked on poor Rob
Can we
last
talk
time.
about this for a second?
Yeah.
So you do have a, reference to having a limit of work and then a no structure zone from the limit of work to the structure.
Correct.
And you've had lots of dialogue about it, and you came to like a policy of 10 feet, but it's not in words in here, 10 feet. And the 10 feet came about, I think mainly from Commissioner Bird's experience in the construction industry, and you need staging, set up ladders, you're gonna overdig your foundation, you can't put your limit of work here and your foundation there, because
No,
you
you
overdig. So 10 feet became like the number,
Yeah,
and it's reasonable. But sometimes
there are
it's,
People
sometimes
who have argued, I mean, we have allowed less than that.
Yeah, yeah.
on
it's
rare
really
occasion.
hard
Well,
to
maybe
convince
it
you
wasn't,
to allow
maybe it
that.
wasn't new, maybe it
Right.
wasn't new, but somebody argued,
Yeah, but I can see that with a building, with a foundation and a 2-story building that you gotta put staging up to like re-side the house or something, or paint it. But if you've got like the house in a deck that's just 2 feet off the ground, I don't know why you need 10 feet from the limit of work to the edge of that deck. Other than Jan will say, well, they're gonna clear it because they're gonna clear it because they want more room. Or perhaps, why do you need 10 feet to a patio? Why not 5 feet? Because that's like different than a building.
Yeah, so 10 feet came about for all of these reasons, as well as when I first started, I saw 2-foot limits of work. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
This one was the biggest offender to the 2-foot limits of work, Mike, and I'm
He's
pointing
matured
right
a
at
lot
you,
in the
Mike.
it's matured a lot in the
Walk
last
in.
20 years.
and as a builder, we'd curse you.
Yeah, so a couple of things with the 10 feet, I like it, it gives the structure the ability to breathe. It's not just being able to build the structure,
Maintenance.
it's being able to maintain the structure, it's being able to enjoy the structure. So the issue I have with 10 feet from a patio is, I'll take the experience again, my own patio, the new house I bought, beautiful hydrangeas screening the patio. They're encroaching so much onto that patio, we had to cut them back, and we gained 3 feet of patio. If you allow a patio and not room around that patio, you're gonna be sitting next to shrubs, and people don't want that, it's too, at least to me, it's claustrophobic. You need, one, being able to maintain the structure, you need to be able to build the structure, you need to be able to enjoy the outdoor space. And if you don't have adequate room around these decks and patios, you're just asking people to cut the vegetation down. That's my 2 cents.
I'm not gonna die on this hill.
No. I'm just saying, that's where I'm coming from a staff person and, just realistically. 5 feet's not a lot,
No, it isn't. 10 isn't much either.
no, but at least 10,
You can get a ladder up.
There's a little wiggle room.
I mean, we'll take an example, I don't think we can. Did we close, BB? No, we haven't. Okay, then we can't.
And we've also had ones where we have conceded where we allowed it closer, when there was, like, again, a beautiful oak tree. And if they went to 10 feet, that they would have to get rid of it.
Right.
And, they'd work around that.
Right,
So-
sometimes like it's in
Yeah,
the
and those
corner
are,
of
those are
And we
fine.
just,
overhang,
we
the
were
overhang
seeing
deck.
these unrealistic limits of work. I mean,
And then all the stuff from the contractors goes over the limit of work because it's unrealistic.
Yeah,
absolutely. So, I mean, the 10-foot limit of work, I think, I mean, we can leave it undefined, but it's easier for the staff if it is defined.
Sounds good.
It's easy for us too, cause then I don't,
You say,
it
see,
is what it is,
Right
right
here.
here,
Yep.
right.
blame them,
Yeah.
not me.
Okay,
We have big shoulders, Mike.
all right, let's see, where's that?
You have to look at every project on it,
Yeah.
on its own anyway, but you do have to have a baseline for everything.
Starting point.
Mike just said, you know, it's so much easier when it's in the book.
Yep.
You know, I mean, like we were talking earlier, you know, you get people that complain all the time, I run into people all the time, and I'm like, all you have to do is read the regulations,
Yeah,
and you know what you can and can't do. It's,
it's very simple.
you know, well, it's a lot simpler
Well,
than
they're
a lot
not
of people
simple,
put
the
it on.
regulations, I remember when I first got on this board, and you gave me a book, and I went home and I'm like, oh, this will be exciting, you know, and I got about 20 pages in, and I'm like, this is the most boring stuff.
Yeah.
This is so poorly organized. So I said to Ed DeWitt, I said, Ed, this is ridiculous. And he goes, I know.
That was the 98 regulation.
I know it's frustrating, the way it's organized. He said, but look at your state regulations. It parallels the state regulations.
It does.
And I said, well, they're stupid. And he said, it may be, but that's what they are.
Double down stupid.
Just get used to it.
All right,
And the last one was a comment from Rob Dewar last week, or last regulatory meeting. We can add a table of contents, that's easy. He just thinks it would make it easier if there was a table of contents.
You said that, Ron?
No, Ron
No,
from
Rob-
Bracken
Rob.
Engineering.
Oh.
Yeah,
I-
Rob,
I-
I'm sorry, Rob from
I
Bracken.
did my own table of
Yeah, it is
contents.
kinda tough, I thought I just had a set, I thought I lost the table of contents.
No, there's
I
never
think they
one.
draw straws, who should,
Oh, that's for this meeting.
I mean, that's very low hanging fruit and something we can just bang out. But it's just something that was mentioned, we wanted to address it.
Yeah, Mike had the misfortune of running into me after our last meeting, and I said, we really missed you. He said, well, I'll be, it's on my schedule, I'll be at the next one.
all right, so,
It's helpful though, Mike.
Yeah.
No, helpful for us to
Oh,
have
thanks,
you here.
good.
to a certain degree, we'll have some fresh topics next time. Jen, I think we should put some of these things on your red line, have to go on the agenda, the drip strip, that sort
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah,
So for the purposes of the regulatory and policy review, we're pretty much done with that for today, right?
yes.
Okay, so, anything else you guys think of that we haven't already started discussion on, just shoot Lori an email and she'll add it to the list.
So we're gonna have the drip strip discussion, and then also we're gonna discuss the, square footage in these zones under buildings, right? That's,
Yeah.
Yes, well,
I only brought up the drip strip because we didn't discuss it
right,
today.
because that was on the
Um,
agenda.
But everything else on the list can be ongoing.
yeah, and now that we've morphed that shed, fire pit, patio discussion to accessory use, let me kind of play around with that and propose something to the board. That's the fire pit, shed, patio, that's that 200 square foot of impervious,
So all of this can
impervious
keep
surface in
ongoing,
an
it's
A
just, you know,
zone, that,
Like I said earlier, at
There were
some
a couple
point.
that were a little more.
I mean, these
Yeah.
are we're never gonna finish this in 1 or 2 nights, like the table of contents, we just finished that, that's done, we'll add one. Yeah, we closed something, yay, but I mean, some of these,
And the 4 foot on center on the shrubs.
yeah, and 10-foot limit of work, yeah, yeah, so. And I'll take another stab at that shed fire pit thing and try to consolidate it to make it, easier. Okay, thank you guys.
Next regulatory meeting is December,
Hang on. This is the
25th.
wrong calendar.
Thursday, yeah, that's why I'm waiting. Thursday.
it'd be the 19th.
Down there on the pole.
Yeah, but
And night, same night as the CPC again. I leave here to go to the
I know.
CPC, yeah.
I don't, you, okay,
I was teacher today.
19th.
all right, so I'm gonna just switch
You're
this.
a very busy man,
Only on Thursdays.
only on
apparently.
Thursdays.
It's one day a week, it's always bad, I don't know what it is.
1, 2, 3, all right, so we'll have to move this. to right there. All right, okay, December 19th,
Same time, same channel.
3:30 to
Maybe we'll get more of
5:30.
you guys besides just one.
December 19th, 3:30 to 5:30. Any topics, please email Lori and CC, myself and the agents. Get it on the agenda, and Mike, that means you too. If you have a topic that you wanna discuss, you know, we're open to, you know, if there's something that,
It's not likely that Shayna will be there for that, right?
I don't know, I'll schedule, but I'll let you know. And I'll try to schedule Shannon, from the floodplain manager and the deputy director of the cooperative extension. I will try to schedule her either for December or January.
Would it be prudent to have Streeter here as well?
Possibly, I can talk to Gary.
See if he would have some time, because it'd be, no matter what Shannon says, hope this sounds okay, it's gonna be the way our building department perceives it.
Correct, but isn't the code, the building code the code, so are there gray
I'd
areas?
be curious how they interpret it.
Okay, yeah,
You know,
we'll see if
what
you
they're
know.
gonna push for. All right, so the next part of this meeting is to vote orders of condition from the last meeting we had, which was almost 2 weeks ago. Mike, thanks for coming.
Yep, have a nice
Thank you
Thanksgiving.
for your input, Mike.
I get to go see your cousins in Bourne tonight
Yay.
for a dock and a D-zone.
Wow.
Happy Thanksgiving, Mike.
Have a good one.
Good luck,
Happy
Mike.
Thanksgiving, Mike.
That should be fun.
All right, so,
Born
Steve and Ron, you're not
recently,
on some of them, but you are on some, so
I
if
think
you
I've
don't mind
been
hanging out for a minute.
around for most of them.
You know,
I've been around for most of them, I've either visited them or was here for some of the hearings. Most of these have been continued over a number of weeks.
Just let me know, boss.
If you want me to go home, no, I will.
you're
That's
on,
my job, to leave
you're on one of them.
and not show up.
All right, first up is Albert Gabrielli, 93 BB Acres Road, Falmouth, Mass. Jen. Oh, this is an addition and a relocated deck. A quorum excludes Ron and Steve.
Yeah.
This is, the riverfront one.
With that very aggressive invasive.
This is the riverfront area project that you saw with the, again, very aggressive, devil's walking stick. If anybody went to the property, it is pretty smothering. So they, are requesting an addition, they wanna shift the deck. This is a riverfront project. Riverfront allows for you to clear 10% or 5,000 square feet of the lot, whatever it is greater. The 5,000 square feet was greater when the house was originally built. It was a vacant lot, you allowed an additional 700, so the original project, correct me if I'm wrong, Alyssa, was 5,700 feet. They are asking for an additional 768 plus, there's a little bit of additional clearing, that's around what, 800 or something? 870, for a total of, I can't do the math in my head, that,
Almost 7,000.
yeah, almost 7,000. Can't do
The total.
yeah, so total in a riverfront. Doesn't quite meet the riverfront area, but if the board feels that Mike overcame the presumptions of significance of that riverfront area, which is almost entirely invasive,
Yeah. And it just kind of clears an area for them to get to their little path.
Correct.
I don't have a problem.
Pulling out to the site, it's,
Yeah,
yes,
it's awful.
Okay.
yeah, okay.
Okay, I'll make a motion to issue an order of conditions as discussed.
Bird second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions. We're voting. Courtney?
Bird eye.
Betsy?
Gladfelder, aye.
Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Matthews, aye.
Follow Hawks, aye.
All right, we've issued an order of conditions. Next up. Ron, do you wanna get out of here? We'll take one out of order. You're only on one.
I'm inside, I should be in some of these.
Let's see, next up, lost my agenda. Sue and Eric Murray, 76 Minot Road, Falmouth, Mass.
This is the one on the corner I was talking about, it's a raise and rebuild, little patio, maybe, maybe not, a spa, they are 0.2%, I believe, over lot coverage for zoning, so I don't know what they're gonna do, if they're gonna come back to us with a small revision to their plan. Septic system, that was the, mounded septic system with the wall, and then, some mitigation to fill the little bit of zone A on the lot.
A lot of room there.
Do we have any concerns?
4 plants.
It was,
Dewatering, I think Maury was the only
Yeah.
thing you had brought
Yeah,
up.
and he said that they didn't think that they'd have to be a problem.
Okay. They always say they don't
I
think it's
know.
gonna be a problem, the next thing they have
Until it
water
is a
all over
problem.
Till
the
it
road.
is, right?
Till it is a problem.
Yeah.
No, we don't have to
You'd think when they
dewater.
did the perk test, that, you know, they'd figure it out, but whatever.
well, they
We're
did say
in
they
a
knew what
drought.
they did say they knew how far down it
Yeah.
was. And they said that probably won't be a problem.
Probably won't be,
Right.
probably,
10 feet
unless
in
they're
the
digging
ocean.
at moon tide.
Okay.
All right, anything anybody want in there?
Make a motion to issue an order of conditions as not too extensively discussed.
Bird second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions. We're voting. Courtney?
Bird eye.
Betsy?
Gladfelder, aye.
O'Brien, aye.
Matthews, aye.
Carlo Hawks, aye.
We have issued an order of conditions.
Even satin
Next
order.
up,
Satin order.
No, I'm usually.
Jonathan and Annie Burley,
That's true.
60 Kerry Lane LLC, 60 Kerry Lane, Falmouth, Mass. And this quorum excludes Ron, but Steve, you're on it. Woo-hoo.
Just a raise and rebuild.
Barely in our,
Barely in our jurisdiction,
pretty good project,
yeah.
pretty well thought out.
I think they made the changes, I don't know if they sent it to us, so I'll ask.
Okay, the revised plan?
Yeah,
Okay.
Great street.
Be required a revised plan for
just the labeling.
labeling, yeah, we'll figure that out. But yeah, this wasn't too bad.
I'll make a motion to issue an order of conditions as discussed.
Bird second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, issue an order of conditions, questions, comments? We're voting. Courtney?
Bird eye.
Gladfelder, aye.
O'Brien, aye.
Matthews, aye.
Carlo Hawks, aye.
Pat and I.
Smooth. We have issued an order of conditions. Next up, Terrence and Margaret Forster, 37 Beckles Road, Falmouth, Mass.
This is the invasive species removal project where they want to burn on the beach. They want to burn the material on the beach. They have a 10-year restriction from natural heritage, so we'll be putting that in, and I have 2 gallon
Should
size.
you explicitly,
Yeah, they were trying to find one.
Oh, yeah,
They're
I-
always required to.
should you explicitly state that they need a fire permit to?
Yes, I think so.
Time
I
of
think we got a
year.
response from fire. I thought we got a response from fire.
They've already asked for, no, but they're gonna have to ask for permission
At the
right before
time,
they burn
Yeah.
at the
Oh,
time.
okay. They were on board to do
Yeah.
that.
You have to get a burn permit.
Okay, fire permit, time of year restriction,
You know,
change to 2-gallon size, which I think he agreed to at the hearing.
Yeah, he did.
Okay, perfect.
Make a motion to issue an order of conditions as discussed.
Bird second.
We have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions, questions, comments, input. Courtney?
Bird eye.
Gladfelter, aye.
O'Brien, aye.
Matthews, aye.
Driscoll,
Patton,
aye.
aye.
We have issued an order of conditions. Next up, Michael Smith and Yvonne Chung, 4 Whittemore Avenue, Falmouth, Mass.
Alan, this was yours, right?
Yeah.
So this is the one where they're putting the addition over the garage. They're increasing the design flow of the septic, so probably putting a bedroom over the garage. They are restoring, buffer zone that had been cleared without a permit. They're removing a rinse station that had been, installed without a permit in the A buffer zone. And they are removing, since the house is partially in a velocity zone, they are removing paneling that had been installed
Oh, yeah.
over the course of many years and many building permits we determined, where they slowly enclose the bottom of the structure. They will be removing that paneling, and we should require that paneling to be removed in a site visit conducted prior to us signing off on that building permit. I see.
And aren't they gonna allow 200 square
Yes,
feet
and they are going to allow
of
200
enclosed space?
of enclosed space underneath that house.
And we did get an engineer's letter.
Yes,
Yeah,
we did.
right. I'll make a motion to issue an order of conditions as discussed.
Bird second.
One other thing, do you wanna see the areas restored before the building permit gets signed off?
The shell areas?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or most of the shell areas, at least the ones they can, that will not interfere with construction?
If they're building the, yeah.
Yeah, because they're
Yes.
building the addition over here, most of the clearing was down by the road.
Right.
So you got
I
Racing
mean, one
Beach
side
this
they might
way.
not be able to do
Yeah.
until they
Okay.
finish the.
But Mark had said they were gonna restore those.
Yeah.
All right, so, but restore
So it won't be-
before signing off on the building permit.
Yeah. Just,
Okay.
it's just
Yeah, 'cause you're
clear.
gonna do the site visit for the,
Yeah. Okay,
panel removal
Yep.
also.
I don't think I'm on this.
And they're
one.
doing a nitro system.
Yeah, I don't think I'm on the corner.
yeah, this one, there was like a buffer to it, Gene, it was,
I don't think I'm on this one.
you know, buffer to everything, yeah, you're correct. The
All
buffer
right.
to everything.
I'm sorry, you're not, Maury, for the record, Maury and Ron are not on this one, right? You have that, okay. So we have a motion and a second. Questions or comments, additions? All right, we're voting.
Bird eye.
Gladfelter, aye.
O'Brien, aye.
Matthews, aye.
Driscoll, aye.
Patton, aye.
Put the more the merrier.
I was there for that.
You bred in.
I did. I went there.
Yeah, but you weren't at the last hearing, that's the problem. You weren't at the hearing when we closed all these.
Right.
That's what we were talking about earlier. All right, but you're on this one, so pay extra attention.
Okay.
All right, next up, Frank Siaka, 96 Waterside Drive, North Falmouth, Mass. The only one on the quorum for this is Ron. No, I'm kidding. Courtney and Maury are not on this one.
This was Arlene Wilson's project, I think they're redoing a patio, extending a deck. Important part is mitigation went in, it was removed, there was an enforcement, restoration went in, it was then again removed, not by the current property owner, but the current property owner is well aware of that violation, and it was discussed multiple times that staff recommends that at least the restoration portion, the violation portion of the plantings be installed prior to us signing the building permit.
Right,
And I do believe I mentioned that at every hearing we
and they
had.
agreed with that,
Yeah, okay.
yeah. But we have to give them some room to.
Yeah, oh yeah, I'm not going,
work,
yeah,
so.
yeah, the seaward side, you know, I'm not gonna make them plant on the side where they need the construction access and all of that, that's just not.
I mean, it got whittled down to kind of a pretty basic project.
Yeah,
Make a,
All right.
make a
Anything else?
motion to issue an order of conditions as discussed.
And
Yeah,
monitoring.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions. Anything else? Okay, we're voting. Not Courtney.
Oh, okay, Gladfelter, aye.
O'Brien, aye.
Matthews, aye.
Fiscal aye. Patton aye.
We have issued an order of conditions. Thank you.
Did you guys close anything, the one that I missed? How come
No.
how come I never get to go home early?
That's a
Because
good-
we're usually.
Never mind. I'll keep my
We
mouth shut.
Phrase it, that it's time to close the hearing.
All right, next up, Dale K. Weldon trustee, Dale Catherine Weldon Revocable Trust, 2013, 129 Racing Beach Avenue, Falmouth, Mass. And the quorum excludes Maureen Ron.
You know what we would.
Yeah, I know it was that, and we wanted to plant some new trees.
Uh,
This is Tom's deck project and mitigation. He came back with a revised plan because he had had more mitigation for a walkway in the front. That was too large, or had been increased. And this is the one where we told Tom he didn't need to plant as many trees as he was proposing, because they just can't support it.
Yeah.
So we will work with Tom. It's just one of these things where we work with Tom in the field. Yeah, we'll work with Tom on the placement of trees once the project's done, and once we get in there and see how much room we have.
I'll make a motion to issue an order of conditions as discussed.
Third, second.
All right, anything, we have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, or input? All right, we're voting.
Bird, aye.
Gladfelter, aye.
O'Brien, aye.
Matthews, aye.
Patton
Keep
aye.
track of your time, would you?
Perfect. We have issued an order of conditions. All right, last thing, before the last thing, other business. Site visit for 30 Woodneck.
They're asking for a coordinated site visit for security reasons. Not something we always do. I think we've done it a handful of times since I've been here. It's on for the 11th.
Hold that thought. So just to be clear, this is gonna be for a new notice,
Correct.
just so that everybody knows, because we've already had an RDA that we already voted on.
Correct.
So this is for an upcoming notice.
It'll be advertised on the 11th.
Sorry.
Yeah, we'll be advertising it for the 11th. So ideally, we would like to probably go out there first week in December. Easy, first week in December. So if everybody could let me know their availability, probably Monday or Tuesday, the 2nd or 3rd, that would be ideal.
At what time?
It's up to you guys.
I don't care.
I mean, from the working,
Yeah, I can go-
Steve,
I can go anytime in the
Maury,
afternoon.
and Jamie, it's gonna be really up to you guys. Is Steve checking his calendar?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Steve checking his calendar.
Just,
I gotta
just
check
let me
mine.
know.
We're gonna let you know.
I'll show. No, I won't show. Linda will drive me.
Yeah,
And why can't we just go
because
there
they
like
lock
we did?
it for security reasons, and there has been a request from their attorney that there's a coordinated site visit.
So,
Can
And
we
it's
guess who their
Christmas
attorney
time,
is?
we're being generous, Courtney.
Wow, humbug.
And that means all of us. So you'll be either going with the agents, me, these guys.
oh no, all three of you are going. If we're making
Okay.
all of us go, you're going,
Is there plenty
just
of
so we're
parking?
clear.
Is there plenty of parking
We'll
there?
have to get a cop to take care of the parking on which
There's
side.
any
Road.
roads.
Wouldn't that
I'm a
go?
loose
Oh, yes.
Narrow.
Are you-
Too bad.
Are these people sure that if they checked on me, I mean, will they let me onto the property?
Yes,
Did you
they
do a
will,
background
yeah.
check?
Yeah.
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 Well,
Did you submit
coordinated
DNA and
site
fingerprints?
visit.
Corey
So
check.
please just email us whatever time is good for you guys. Steve, I'm more with Steve, Maury, and Jamie, because you guys work.
Well, I'm just doing leaf cleanup, so I can jump on stuff.
Okay, Steve?
So what were the 2 days again?
I'm just throwing out
December
Monday and
23.
Tuesday because the staff has to get out there so we can do our staff reports and everything else.
2nd and 3rd of December.
Yeah, Yeah, I can do, just pick a day, and I won't schedule myself in a day.
Okay, I wasn't sure what you were doing.
It's the
All right.
advantage of being a sub, I work.
All right, we'll pick a time. Jamie, what
It
time
costs
is
me
ideal for you?
$135 to do a site visit, I have you know.
That's all?
9
That's all I
o'clock,
get a
Jamie,
day.
10 o'clock, what time is better for you?
9 o'clock,
9 o'clock?
mid-morning? Okay.
9 o'clock on which day?
9 o'clock is
I
mid-morning?
can't do,
For me,
I can't do Tuesday.
I could, yeah, Monday's great for me,
I'm
too.
gonna have.
we just said
I
Monday,
can't-
did
I
we
have to
not?
look at my
Yep.
calendar.
9 AM
No,
Monday.
We said Monday or Tuesday,
Monday at 9, can you do that?
I think so.
Why don't you guys check and let us know?
I can.
Okay?
I already know I can, I'll put it on my calendar.
That's my problem. Put
All
it
right,
on my
so at
calendar.
the moment,
Courtney, you're gonna come with us.
we're looking
Monday,
for
yeah,
Monday,
December 7th.
the
December
2nd, at
2nd.
9
I
AM.
can check,
And we'll meet at the site,
All right,
or
and honestly, you guys, if you can't meet Monday, you know, at the given time, we can, I can always reach out to the, applicants' representatives, and if someone like Courtney, you can't make that time, I can pick a time with you, and I can go out there with you and go out. I mean,
So this has to be advertised as a public meeting,
yes, it does, we are well aware of that.
and, what was that note about restricting public?
According to the attorney, I believe she said somewhere in the regs, and I need to have her show that to me, that we, this isn't like, the public is not allowed on the site, it's for the commission only, but I do have to post a public meeting.
Well,
What if the butter has an issue?
It's a public meeting, why can't somebody go?
red flag,
But
but there's an
I will double check with the attorney, I don't know what regulations she's talking about, so, and she wasn't, she didn't clarify.
Huh?
I can't place it.
We can take,
The geography.
we can carpool.
By Woodneck Beach, we haven't been there before, well,
Oh, by Woodneck Beach, of course. I know what you're saying.
yeah,
I can fit
It's huge.
8 people in my Tahoe, so we
I'm
can,
not going, I've seen you drive, I'll walk.
She passes me when I'm leaving here and I left a half hour before.
To the left hand side going towards the beach.
Oh, it's on the left side.
alright, just
Um,
let me
Turbo
know, and if you can't make it, Courtney, I will make sure that you get on the property and I will go with you, okay?
Okay, now I got it.
Alright, okay. Okay, and then,
I make a motion to adjourn.
wait, Mr. Chairman, do you want to talk about the, open house?
Oh, yeah, just real quick, so, as you know, we're trying to recruit more people. We have 2 members that are, whose terms have already expired, but there's a loophole in the system that allows continued service.
Yeah. Curdled milk can still be used.
We
They're
call it the
expired.
Maury rule. At any rate, the concern is that as people, you know, leave, that we're gonna have quorum issues. So we're trying to figure a way to entice people to wanna get involved.
$500 a day.
$500 a day. I missed that one.
Where's mine?
I can't afford to pay you that much. So
Now we have to get on the pension.
what we're going to do is, we're gonna have a, for lack of a better term, an open house, where we invite anybody that's thinking about it, joining, coming in and talking with us about, like, what's required, what's the time commitment.
Can
how
we
the-
lie?
Always large. You know, what's involved.
I can be honest about my expertise.
So, Jen and I obviously will be here, we'd love to have a couple of commissioners.
And when is this?
It is,
Thursday, December 5th, and off the top of my head, it's either 3 to 4 or 4 to 5, I can't remember which one we
it was
advertised.
4 to 5.
Okay, it's gonna be,
Are other departments doing this as well, or other commissions, or?
no,
Oh,
we're gonna do this as a way to kind of drum up some interest, and then, the chairman and I will be appearing before this, well, I'm gonna request that we able to make just this announcement at the select board's public comment period on December 2nd.
3 o'clock?
It's 3 or 4, Steve, I'll double check and send it
That's
out to
been
you.
my problem, like today.
Yeah, I know.
I have problems with my 3s and 4s.
Yeah, it's okay, Steve, we got you covered.
I think there,
have one other
And
thing,
these
Mr.
three
Chairman.
people are coming up next
I think
June.
I know,
tonight-
and that's why we're
Yeah.
doing this, because we have a couple of commissioners that
She'll
will
never
be
stop.
terming out next June.
No, I was talking about her. I wanted her to listen. Tonight, in the discussion, you said several times to make it easier for the homeowner. I guarantee you that no one in the town of Falmouth believes that to be true. That this commission ever makes it easier for the homeowner.
That's actually part of the purpose of the open house, is that hopefully if people are
I think they
interested,
should have heard that.
I do
and
too.
maybe some verbiage in the ad that's not only that, but just people, if they're thinking of coming in with an application, that if they wanna get some input, because you're right, that's a very popular misconception that, you know,
Go to any rich people's bar and you hear it every night.
They hate
Number
us.
one topic of Woodville Golf Club.
I don't know, I've never been to a rich person's bar.
Okay,
Sure you have.
All right,
Where do you live?
What?
Excuse me?
all right, everyone,
I make a motion to adjourn. How
thank
about-
you.
Thank you.
It was in your neighborhood.
I think you have to say
Hard
aye.
eye.
He lives in
I'll make a
Sycamore.
motion, I'll
I
second,
did not.
second.
No, say bird eye.
Bird eye,
I
I'm
felt
sorry.
your eye.
O'Brien, aye.
Matthews, aye,
Carla Fox, aye.
Driscoll, aye.
Pat and I.
we're adjourned.
Thank